dum. 2, 1, boom. Hotep Jesus. How are you, sir? I always wanted to say that. I wanted to call somebody that.
I need that drop.
How the fuck do you get a name like Hotep Jesus? How'd that come about?
It wasn't my idea. You know, I had just went through my spiritual awakening. I just left the hip hop industry, and I went through like that mace thing. You know, where you go to
what
church.
What are you doing with the headgear? We got a lot going on up there.
I had to tie my hair down. This is a black thing, man. I got school you.
So you have spiritual awakening.
Yeah, I had this spiritual awakening, and I'm, tweeting on Twitter like I do.
Right.
And somebody said, "What do you think you are? Some kind of Hotep Jesus?"
Ooh,
and
that's
I was
good.
Just like, ooh, that's sexy. Yes, I do think I'm Hotep Jesus.
That's perfect. Then now you own it.
Now I own it.
That person is probably like, fuck. God damn it, that was a great name I gave that dude.
Yeah, I don't know who that person is or was or where they are now. But
shout out to whoever you are.
Exactly.
And Vibe High, your Twitter, why didn't you switch it to Hotep Jesus? Can you switch it? Does anybody own Hotep Jesus?
I do.
So you have Hotep Jesus on Twitter too?
Yeah, I reserved it.
Oh, dude, I think they could probably swap. Do you have one of them cute little blue check marks yet?
No.
What the fuck is that? How do you get one of those?
I don't know.
There's some people that have those that have like 1,000 followers. Like,
yeah.
How are you getting it? Like if you work for the New York Times or some shit?
I thought you had the hookup.
Nah,
I was like, I'll do Joe and then I get verified, right?
I don't know how Twitter feels about me. I mean, I think Jack likes me. He's been in a couple of times, but I think the whole... They're weird, man. I think all social media, all tech companies want you to toe a line right now. And if you're not toeing that line and you're bringing on forbidden guests and you have people that have controversial ideas, they have that finger on the button of getting rid of you. They don't know what to do.
It's just like radio, like radio. A lot of people don't know it, but radio has to play happy songs because happy people buy things.
Really?
Yeah, that's what the studies say. Allegedly, the marketing studies and advertising studies say people who are in a good mood tend to buy things, right? So the radio is supposed to play happy songs all day long, and the radio works for the advertisers, kind of like media,
right.
So on and so forth. So social media is no different. They have advertisers. So if there's people on the platform who are creating disgruntled crowds, it could be hurting the bottom line.
Yeah, but Facebook's algorithm actually favors that. The way Facebook has it set up, like say if you get into debates with people on abortion or something like very controversial, they will start sending that shit to your feed. They'll sort of steer it in your direction because the more you engage, the more clicks they get, the more money they get, the more advertising dollars they get.
Absolutely. The Facebook algorithm is quite unique in the way that things can go viral there. Twitter, I feel like the Twitter Safety and Council Board.
Yeah, what do they call it? Trust and Safety?
Yeah, is that what it's called?
Something like that.
Yeah, so when I go and look at the entities that contribute to that board, I kind of start saying, oh, okay, I see why certain topics are taboo. Mm-hmm. When there's a board, those people on the board are the voice. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that have the opinion. So if your group isn't represented, maybe you need to figure out how to get on that board. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't know anybody's getting on that board.
Nah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
And you better be left wing if you're going to get on that board. I don't think there's any right wing.
But do you think
board.
I think Jack's more like in the middle. Right?
Yes.
I think he's closer to the middle. I don't think it's Jack. I think it's, Jack's working on a bunch of different projects. Mm-hmm. But I think it's probably... whoever else is in the office making the day-to-day decisions. Yeah,
I like Jack a lot, but I think Jack is in the middle of a gigantic corporation. Mm-hmm. And there's so many people with so many ideas. Essentially, the founding fathers of our country had a great idea when it comes to freedom of expression. Mm-hmm. They felt like it was very important that you have free speech. And you can't be silenced. You can't be undermined by people who disagree with you because it's dangerous. It's dangerous when someone can just decide that you can't have a voice anymore and only their voice can be heard. And we're kind of seeing that with Twitter, and we're kind of seeing that with Facebook and with Google, and they're deciding what can be heard and what not can be heard. They think they're doing it for good reasons. They think they're doing it to preserve our culture and our civilization, and they want to protect people from the election. Do you know Reddit shut down the Donald Trump support Reddit page? Yeah, that's not a good idea.
Right before the Dem debate. Right
before the Democratic debate, and that was like where all the funny memes come from. And look, man, this you can't do that. I mean, just because if you have some people that are saying some shit that's bad on there, get rid of those people. Get rid of that. But you can't just shut down a whole forum. Like that seems insane. Is there a reason for it?
Yeah, it's not shut down. It says it's quarantined.
Yeah, what the fuck does that mean? Does it have a disease?
It's sort of like temporary.
It's got
suspension.
Ebola?
It happens to people. They got to do something. It says there's violent threats. I'm looking to see what happened.
Oh, okay.
Repeated misbehavior.
Violent threats.
We'll see.
Skeptical?
Very.
Seems weird, right? I feel like all of this stuff is like we're seeing what the First Amendment is really all about, why it exists. We're seeing it play out with all these social media sites. I really think that.
But, you know, my thing is with like the Reddit thing, right? It's very easy to create an actor, right? The left can create a right-wing actor online to pretend like it's something else.
Sure.
It's something else. They can go into Reddit, do something malicious to get the whole Reddit banned, right? Or
like an agent provocateur.
Yeah, exactly. And I never leave that off the table when I look at instances like this. When you say, oh, it's the internet. Everybody's anonymous. You know, how are you tracking this back to who it is? You know what I mean? Or do you know it's conservative? Do you know it's Republican? Are you sure? So, you know, I take these pieces of information with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you should.
But is this election meddling?
It kind of is, right?
That's what it feels like.
If you're killing a whole it depends.
I mean,
so if they're really, that would be really interesting if it turns out that it was someone from the left that was posing as someone from the right in order to shut down a forum and pretend there's death threats.
I mean, you look at YouTube, right, and what's been happening with YouTube, even just the algorithm. You know, I'm pretty good with keywords. I do SEO and marketing. So when I type in certain keywords to find certain things, I know what's going to come up or what type of content comes up. Now, when I type in those keywords, it's like ABC, NBC, ABC, CNN, and I'm like, that's not what I wanted. They don't even talk about these keywords. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know? So when you start seeing that, you start thinking about Ingsoc and Orwell in 1984 and socialism and communism and fascism and the degradation of society and a lot of control coming down. You know, people, you know, in some ways it's like, was the internet created for freedom or was it created for control, right? So there's two different pathways we could probably look at that. But it seems like in many ways they set us up to be controlled. And they're doing it through monopolies. Google controls search through YouTube and Google. And by what you search, you can think it's a truth. But what did Kanye say? Kanye said Google lied to you, you know? So
Kanye says a lot of crazy shit, though. You got to really think about that.
He does. And I like crazy.
I do, too. I'm a big fan of crazy.
I'm a little crazy. A lot of crazy sometimes. So I appreciate his crazy side more than his calm side.
Well, great things come from wild thoughts.
Right. Exactly.
I think the internet was initially created to exchange information, and then when it got loose to the general public, they realized what a crazy idea that was. What I think we're seeing right now with the algorithms is that these corporations are influencing these companies to say, hey, when someone's looking for these things, how about you send them over to ABC? How about you send them over to NBC? How about you know, like we want to be able to get the first views on these things. So if someone's searching for that, I don't know how they do it. I don't know whether they have agreements with them. Maybe, I mean, there's also a lot of copywritten shit that's on there that could get YouTube in some significant trouble if they ever really decided to pursue it.
Right.
And how many videos are on YouTube that people have on their channel that are just straight off of Fox News or NBC News or, I mean, there's a lot of like copyright protected content that YouTube is essentially profiting off of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they make a ton of money off of that stuff.
Yeah. So they might have deals where they say, look, we'll send these people to, you know, this first.
Yeah, and that's why I say, you know, that's where the control comes in. You know, the advertisers. The advertisers are the ones paying, you know, for the platform to be a thing. It's not us, the users, that are paying for it. YouTube's free. So who's paying, right?
Yeah.
They're monetizing us. They're monetizing us, the users and the viewers.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky, right? Because as soon as the advertisers get on board, they say, look, we want to give you money, but this content is not advertiser friendly.
Right.
Yeah, and then they start moving stuff around and demonetizing things, and And with demonetization, the real thing that they're doing in a lot of ways, whether it's intentional or not, is you're influencing what people post. You're kind of you're asking them to self-censor, because if you say, "Hey, you guys want to discuss abortion rights," or like there's some things that you start discussing them and they will automatically demonetize you.
Yeah. Well, who is the girl that put out the abortion documentary, right? And they
Which girl's that?
snatched that down. I forget what it's called. I'm bad at memorizing these things, but there was basically an anti-abortion thing that exposed some things about abortion. There's a documentary, and I believe the day it went up, it got shut down. She had to re-upload it. Was it Lauren Southern? Might have been.
Yeah,
Lauren
there's
Southern.
those two cute white chicks that everybody thinks are super racist. Lauren Southern and Tammy. What's the other one?
Tammy
Lauren.
Tommy Lauren.
Tommy
Yeah.
Lauren.
So she did a documentary, but then you have like the James O'Keefe thing where he put up the exposing YouTube, and then that got obviously they're going to take it down.
The most recent one that exposed Google, right?
Right.
Yeah, I've been asking people about that. I'm like, okay, break this down for me. Is there any way that this could have been deceptively advertised or deceptively edited? Like, it seems to me like they're saying that they're going to manipulate search results and they're going to manipulate the way people see things because of the 2016 election. They don't want that happening again in 2020. That's what it seems when I'm looking at it.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it looks like. Could it be doctored? Of course it could. That's always possible. But when you go and experience it for yourself, like what I was talking about with doing a keyword search, you start seeing the parallels. And then Uncle Hotep, his channel was doing great, and then the algorithm flipped, and next thing you know, like he wasn't making the same money anymore. So it's like I don't have to go to some doctor video or whatever video to understand this problem. The people around me are being affected by it. This is a primary source. I don't have to look at somebody on the internet. But I don't know. It's in a way, I don't like playing victim with the topic, right? It's their platform. Do what you want with it. We choose to be there. We don't have to be there.
There's not another game in town, though.
It's not.
It's weird, right? When you think about how big the internet is, and there's only one YouTube.
Right.
I mean, Vimeo and all those other ones, they're great, but...
Well, I always relate it to the black community. The black community always say, oh, white people this, white people that, white people this, white people that. They're not giving us opportunity. And it's always like, well, is that the only opportunity? Can you not create your own opportunity? You know what I mean? So I never want to take a victim mentality and say, oh, let's take Google to court, all this stuff. It's like, if you want to do that, that's fine. That's not how I'm looking at this. I'm looking at it long term, like hooking up with Andrew Torb over at Gap. You know what I mean? And building tools. So, we do the coinbitsapp.com, and creators can actually, it's based upon approval right now, but creators can go on there and receive Bitcoin as a donation. So we're circumventing the things that happen like with the deplatforming at Patreon, right? And the other payment platforms for creators. So we're creating tools to circumvent these things. So that's how I look at it. I'm like, oh, Google's doing this? Great. This is a great opportunity here. Let me seize it and let me build it and be, the alternative. I love to see that. Is the alternative going to be YouTube and as popular? Of course not. It's just not. But it's still a viable option. You can still communicate with your people. The number one communication tool for an influencer with their community is email. Build your email list, right? People still subscribe to your email list, right? That's not YouTube. That's not Google. That's your email list. That's your contact list. So it's like you can complain about YouTube or Google, but you can build your audience almost anywhere. It depends on how powerful you are. Are you powerful enough to convince people to come to this other platform or to wherever you are? A lot of people are powerful enough to pack a room at $2,000 a ticket. You tell me you can't get somebody to go to another platform for free?
Who charges $2,000 a ticket?
A lot of these speakers, like the Tony Robbins type cats.
Does he really? He charges $2,000?
I think he charges like 10. Yes, I think some of his stuff is like 10. Yeah,
but he's doing like these week-long events where everybody gets together. I'm gonna change your life. He's like doing karate kicks and shit. Right?
That's how you get the bigger check. You got to
Yeah.
create a bigger experience.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, so we'll do a one day at 2K, right? It's like, well, how do I get 10K? It's like, well, let's just extend it for the week and,
Yeah.
add like, the kickboxing class and, we'll chat in the
Yeah.
sauna. You just, create, that's part of
Yeah.
marketing,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not complaining about these tech companies, man. I'm not scared of these dudes, man. The content is us.
The content is certainly us, and I get what I got from talking to Jack and Vidya was it's almost impossible to manage a site like that. Just the influx of I used to have a message board on my website. One of the things that I noticed before we shut it down was I was getting thousands and thousands of Russian emails that were signing up for my website. You remember that, Jamie? This is years ago. This is like 3 years ago.
Okay.
I mean, fucking tens of thousands of Russian email addresses were signing up, like similar addresses. It was something like the IRA, something like the Internet Research Agency, which does that, which is responsible for all those fake pages on Facebook and Google and Instagram and all that shit. And they were signing up for websites and that had message boards, and then they would jump on and pretend that they were whatever the fuck they were.
Right.
Pretend that they were a social justice warrior. Pretend that they were with Black Lives Matter. Pretend,
yeah.
and they just start fights, start arguments.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And then when it also happened, and then it happened with Facebook, and it became a big part of the election, you realize like this is like concerted effort to use these platforms to wiggle. So when you're Jack or you're whoever runs Google, you have to look at that and go, okay, how the fuck do we manage that? I mean, if we're into free speech, we should just let these people manipulate everybody.
Right. Yeah. Let it be Wild Wild West.
It's when you have these people that are working for the Russians, or even people that are working on the left that are trying. I mean, if there really is someone that's doing that to the Donald subreddit on Reddit, what do you do? If you're into free speech, you're supposed to allow that, right?
Well, you could just create a metric, or some sort of mechanism that red flags an account publicly.
Right, but I think this is where it gets slippery, right? Because then you're talking about an algorithm. You're talking about manipulating search results. You're talking about...
No, not that route. What I'm saying is...
not that route, but this is where it goes, right? If you just keep managing the content instead of just... Like someone like Gab,
Right.
where they just let the content flow free.
Yeah.
But obviously you go there, there's a lot of dumpster fires, man. It's like fucking chaos when you do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Nothing's going to be perfect.
Right.
I think whenever you see bad, that's good, right?
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Bad is a portal to good. It is an opportunity to fix something, because at some point that problem was going to emerge.
Right.
It just emerged now. So it's like, oh, wow, okay, here's this problem. The solution to every problem lies within the problem. So technically there is no problem. So let's just go ahead and solve this problem and move on to the next one, But I love problems. I love solving problems. I think it's really fun. So when I see a problem, I go, okay, let's think about this. And sometimes it's not a one-person job. It's a whole committee and a whole bunch of minds have to get together. So when I look at the conservative community, I think about all right, you have all these minds, but are your minds working to complain, or your minds working to solve the problem? And it seems like the minds aren't working to solve the problem. They're working to complain, right? So, for example, during the early 20th century or early 1900s, this dude with this newspaper, super popular in New York. And he put some inflammatory things about a certain family in New York City. And all the department stores boycott the newspaper, so he has no advertisers. So they did that to put him out of business. And this gentleman takes the space and gives it to the proletariat, or the small business guys in the area, and he gives them full front page ads, right? Stuff that the department stores couldn't buy. And then what happened was, after the newspaper got it circulating like that, the department stores came back and they said, "Yo, all right, fine, we'll pay, we'll come back." And he said, "No, I don't need you anymore. I have people that can do this. I can do this with the people." And his newspaper was successful until the day he died. So when I look at that example that was able to thrive in 1920 or something, or 1910 or whatever it was, I look at it and I'm like, if this guy just stood on his laurels and didn't bow, then why can't we do it as a nation or as a team? I think it's very possible to. So, for example, like when we look at Gab, right? There's a new competitor. I'm not going to mention the name, but it's like whoever it was, the establishment created this alternative platform to compete with Gab.
There's
on
another
purpose.
one?
Yeah.
You don't want to mention the name?
Nah, screw them.
Really?
Yeah, fuck them.
Why? What's bad about them?
Their establishment, right?
Oh.
So when I look at
So establishments created another free speech platform?
allegedly,
Allegedly.
they're just going to collect the data on these people and then sell it off.
What makes you think that?
Intuition, Hotep's been told you,
You should make a shirt. That should be a shirt.
Oh, we got a shirt.
Hotep's been told you?
Yeah, that's our show.
Oh.
yeah. Me and Uncle Hotep, that's our show every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, I can kind of, I've been calling a lot of these shots and a lot of these things, and it's just certain things that, I'm a tech startup founder, right? So it's certain things I can see within a business that the average person can't see, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't look right. And then when you see, as a tech startup, it's really hard to get going, right? At first, but when you see like MSNBC, and it's just like, how'd you get all this coverage that fast? Who do you know? You know what I mean? And then you start seeing the influencers that are going over there and pushing them like, oh, these are all the established. I see what's going on. What you didn't want an alternative platform that you didn't control.
Okay, so they're creating an alternative platform that they can control. Air quotes, alternative.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think the writing is on the wall, right? If they look at there's only one Twitter, there's only one Instagram, there's only one YouTube, and those are giant. And Facebook is basically the only thing like that, right? I mean, there's really no competitor to Facebook in that space.
I mean,
this is 4 of them.
They're all trash. Let's be honest.
Oh my goodness,
it's all trash.
Hotep is going off.
Facebook trash. I've been saying that for like the past decade. Facebook's trash. I stopped using Facebook a decade ago. Right? If I used it, it was just like forced. You know what I mean?
use it as a publishing outlet. I when I put tour dates or something like that, I put it on Facebook. I don't engage.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can respect that. I don't use Instagram. I left it months ago when Farrakhan got kicked off the platform. A bunch of conservatives got kicked off the platform. I'm like, I don't need this shit neither. So I left. And also,
did you keep your account just in case?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's bookmarked. I got an automated bot I'm going to set up and all that
there
stuff. Yeah. So F these platforms. We don't need them. They're not that great. If you look at the story on Instagram, Instagram was a lucky project. It was serendipitous, right? Basically what happened was some kids built a project. It was called Instagram. They were working on a whole bunch of other things. Some popular kids started using the platform. It blew up, and then they passed it on to Facebook. From the very inception, I said this is a very trash product. It's just horrible. Horribly curated, right? It's so horribly curated that Facebook can't even monetize the platform properly, right? But that's a whole nother story. But the platform itself and its functionality is stupid. It's just popular.
Well, you know what's weird is like replying to people and reading replies like in the comments. Like you can't even keep up with anything.
No. And you can't get all your notifications. The notifications aren't curated properly. It's like as if they don't care, right? They don't care, right?
Is it that they don't care, or is it that it got so big so quick and it's stuck in this format? You'd have to kind of reformat the way it's...
They don't care.
You don't think so?
They don't care. They don't care. If you want to build a product for your user, you can do that. If you want to build a product for advertisers, you can do that. They built the product for advertisers and not for users. If they built it for users, you and I would be able to have a conversation on there.
Well, wasn't it Text America? Was that the same thing? Was Text America the original one? Ooh. That's the one where I have the picture of the prostitute in the bathroom.
You mean like where you would text something to...
You'd send a photo. You send a photo and a text
but
message,
it wasn't
and
like
it would go up to an internet website.
It would be like on a site like Imager or something, not like a feed where people would follow you like that, was it?
No, there was a thing that you would follow.
Oh, okay.
That's where that picture came from.
I know that, but I didn't remember it being like a website or anything like that.
That was back when there was no applications, man, because I took that from a flip phone.
Then that's the big deal. That's the difference. It wasn't on a phone or like a smartphone.
Yeah, there was no smartphones back then. And then you would have to go to a website to see all your photos. Yeah. So like you have a young Jamie Page on Text America and all the pictures that you had taken.
The first photos on Instagram, a lot of people you'd be like shit as a photographer, you'd be kind of like shit on if you weren't taking it with your iPhone only. And you were uploading DSLR photos, you'd be like, oh, you're fucking cheating. Look at you. Like that kind of shit.
Right, but now it filters. Like some of these girls, they look like cartoons. They don't even look like humans.
It comes down to is like, what's your kahunas, right? So, you know, a lot of people told me, they was like, yo, you missing out on a lot of money on Facebook. You missing out on a lot of money on Instagram. My homie's a millionaire off of Instagram and Facebook advertising. And he told me about it. I'm like, yo, I'm not in this for money, bro. I got a message to get across, and I can't get it across on these platforms. They suck, right? But are you going to have the cojones to come and say, I'm choosing my morals over the money? Because there's a lot of people out here that are on the Facebook platform just for money. Mm-hmm. I spoke to a conservative influencer, and brother basically said, I'm trying to feed my daughter. But the stuff he's putting out on Facebook, he doesn't believe in.
So he's just doing it for profit.
He's doing it for profit.
Ooh, that's where it gets weird, right? Because then people are not going to believe you once you say, well, I was doing that for money, but now I'm telling you the truth.
But I'm talking about these are the people that everybody believes. These are the ones that have captured a large audience. I mean, talking about, you know, the type of money you can pull in on Facebook. Mm-hmm. But, you know, he literally says, you know, I'll go on Twitter, I'll make one tweet, and it'll get like 2,000 retweets. And then, his brand just blows up like that. But it's because he knows the buzzwords, right? He knows what to say to get the people going. I don't go that route. You know what I mean? If I don't like Facebook, I'm not going to use it. If I don't like Facebook, I'm not going to use Instagram. You know, I'm just going to, you know, stick with what I like. I like Twitter. And I told people in 2009 when I go there, I'm Twitter. You know, I deal in marketing. So I always say focus on one channel when it comes to social media. Just one channel. Unless you have the staff to manage. But
well, Twitter's how I found out about you. And that's all I found out about your videos. And I found out about you. And I watched your videos. And if that didn't exist, and the portal for the video, you're putting your videos on YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, how else would someone get their message out? If you think that these platforms are all trash, if they didn't exist, I wouldn't find out about you.
Twitter is great.
Twitter's great.
Remember, I've never mentioned Twitter.
I think you said all of them are trash, but
all of them except for Twitter.
For Twitter.
Twitter's my baby, man. I love Twitter. That's my.
What do you like so much about Twitter?
It's It's a perfect platform to crowdsource information, number one, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said, without Twitter, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I could have never got to you on Facebook or Instagram. That would have never happened.
Maybe Instagram. If a friend, most of it is like, hey, one of my friends says, check out this guy. This guy's cool. This guy's interesting. Right. Maybe you should talk to this guy.
Okay.
That's how it usually happens. And then I'll go to your page and I checked it out and I saw a lot of interesting conversations you were having and saw some videos.
Well, the thing is, Instagram doesn't allow you to see in my heart. They don't allow you to see in the soul. Twitter, I can really connect with people.
How come you can't do that on Instagram?
The algorithm, man. You know, you
mean because it hides stuff and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
But once you develop a good following, it doesn't really matter. People will go to your page.
But how often
look for you?
But how often can you post?
On Instagram? Yeah. How often can you post? Well, you can't do it like Twitter, where you can just do it every couple minutes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so if I wanted to, I could go from deep to where my middle-aged white women at.
Right.
In 15 minutes time.
Right.
You know, I can take you deep and then I can make you laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I can share, you know, something else. I can share my video.
And you can have photos on Twitter just like you could have on Instagram if you really wanted to.
I can go live. Mm-hmm. And so Twitter is great at how they curate the live feature, right? Mm-hmm. It lands at the top of your phone on mobile, right? It's beautiful. Like they get product. You know, I don't feel like Instagram gets product. But Twitter is you know, matter of fact, this is a great time I brought you my book.
I thought that was McDonald's or Burger King. I was like, what is he eating that garbage for?
This is my book right here, Twitter Marketing. I brought that for you. It retails on
how to build a cult-like following.
Yeah. And that's basically all my secrets on how I got on the Joe Rogan experience.
I'm trying to remember who told me about you. I want to give someone the credit.
Well, you know, people said to me, you know, you should go on Joe Rogan. So I retweeted it, and then it started this firestorm in your mentions, and then you followed me.
Yeah.
And then I retweeted it again.
I followed you because someone told me, though.
Right.
I'm trying to remember who the fuck it is.
Oh, it was somebody you knew?
Yeah, somebody I knew.
Oh, okay.
I think it was like a serendipitous thing. Like I don't even know if they had seen you post that you're trying to get on the podcast.
Oh.
I think someone had just contacted me and said, hey, check out this guy's shit.
Oh, wow.
And I watched some of the YouTube conversations. You just looked like you were having a good time, but you were talking about serious shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you know, so I got kids. So when I teach my kids, it's always through edutainment. You know, if I can't make my kids laugh while I'm doing my lecture, every day when they come home from school, or I try to do every day, there's a lecture waiting for them. And we're going to talk about something real in life.
How many kids you have?
3. My daughter's 16 and my boys are 10. I have twin boys, Dallas, Phoenix, and Sydney. They're all named after cities. So every day they come home, I have a lecture waiting for them. But when I prepare my lectures for them, I always figure, how am I going to make them laugh? Because my son, Dallas, he's very linear in thinking. I could lecture, and he'll sit there and he'll listen to every single word. The other 2 are like me. They'll just like zone out.
So your twins are they identical twins?
Fraternal.
Oh.
Yeah. So his brother and his sister are just like me. We'll all tune out and go into La La Land and start
It's got to be
dating.
weird when you have 2 kids that were born at the exact same time. They're twins, but yet they're totally different.
Yeah, and they look different.
That's so weird.
One's brown skin, one's light skin.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
both come out of the box at the same time, too.
yeah, you know, it's a crazy dynamic.
Genetics are nuts, man.
Yeah, their personalities are very different.
That is one of the things that trips me out the most about having kids. Is how just they are their own little person out of the fucking box.
Yeah.
Like, you influence them a little, you teach them, you can give them morals and ethics, and you can set a good example. But boy, they come with their own unique set of ingredients.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And you know, I don't try to change that. All I try to do is push them in that direction. Like, whichever way you're going, I'm just going to try and assist that. You know, I don't try to like bring you back this way. So my son Dallas, he likes to draw, you know, and I'm like, all right, well, here's some YouTube videos, tutorials, do it every day. You know, my son Phoenix is like, I want to have my own comic book. I'm like, well, start writing it. And he starts writing his comic book. And then he comes and he asks me questions, and I help him. We share in a Google Doc, and we just do the damn thing. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
Yeah, they're little startups, so you kind of just gotta you just gotta feed them. You know,
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, you know, you just gotta water them, man, and just let them grow. I think sometimes we try to prune them too much.
Well, you definitely see that a lot with people that are they're way too heavy-handed with their kids, and the kids just always resisting.
Oh yeah,
They're just constantly, just get the fuck away from me, man.
Yeah.
That shit's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. It's unproductive, and you're going to develop a rift between you and your kids.
Yeah. So this story I always tell is, you know, when you black and you go in the supermarket, you get that talk like, you better not go in here, you better not touch nothing, don't ask for nothing, right? So, you know, that's how I grew up. A lot of us grew up. So when I go into the supermarket, or I went to the supermarket this one time, and my son is Phoenix, my twin. He's running around in the supermarket, and you know, I try not to yell at my kids and all that stuff, right? So I just tap his brother and sister on the shoulder, and I said, "Look at him, look at him, look at him." And they look, and then we just start laughing at him. So he turns around and goes, like, "Why are y'all laughing at me?" So then I start imitating, like, doing all that type stuff. And I put the mirror in front of him. I call it the mirror.
Yeah.
And when he does that, never again. It's never
Yeah.
a problem again. I didn't have to yell at him. I didn't have to hit him. I didn't have to cuss him out. I didn't have to threaten him.
That's
None of
great.
That, you know, it's just basic psychology.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things for people to do, to see how other people see them. And when someone sees you with humor and you look like a fool, they're like, oh, shit, that's me? Damn.
Yeah.
That is me.
Yeah, exactly. So you just got to put your mirror up. But, you know, Twitter, you know, I handle everything. You know, I figure you can't change culture through lecture. You change culture through entertainment.
What do you think about all this talk? Like Elizabeth Warren's talked about it, and some other candidates have talked about it, some other politicians have talked about breaking up these big companies, breaking up Facebook. It's too big. Break up Google. Break up Twitter. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, I think we have to study what happened to Standard Oil.
What happened to Standard Oil?
Standard Oil, they broke it up, and it became Exxon, Chevron, Texaco, I think BP. Don't quote me on that one. But
does anybody have brand loyalty to gas? Is anybody like, dude, I'm a Chevron man?
They create those cards, right? Those
loyalty
gas cards.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's how they create a loyalty program.
Here it is, the evolution of Standard Oil. Jamie pulled it up on the screen.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow, so Standard Oil was too big. And they're like, fuck this place.
Right.
We have to move it around a little bit.
1911.
Standard Oil of Kentucky. 1911 they did this.
Right. So if you look at it, it's broken up into, I think it says 34, right? It's 34 companies, right? So you see start on the left, right? And then as you go, what do you see? You see a consolidation, don't you? You see these merges?
Yeah.
So when you break up a monopoly, you're not really breaking up a monopoly. What you're doing is you're creating a divide and conquer dynamic. So it's like, okay, I'll let my brother control this one, my sister control that one, my cousin control this one, and you actually corner the market. So breaking a monopoly isn't exactly a good thing.
In that case, yeah.
In that case. And I think we'll see the same thing with Google. If we break up Google, what you're going to do is just have little subsidiaries or little satellite things that will just control a certain segment under a different name, which will make it harder to track back to its source. So when I say, break up a monopoly, I think that the establishment's like, yeah, come on, break me up, baby.
Do you think so? I think they want it. I don't think they want to lose any control. I certainly don't think Facebook does.
It's not
they're trying
losing
to get
control,
rid of
though.
Zuckerberg forever. Right? Aren't they trying to get rid of him? The board members
That's what they claim, but
get that robot out of here.
Let's
Look at the
look-
way he drinks water.
right, he does look like a robot. But
Way he drank water in front of Congress.
isn't that socialism? Mm-hmm. That's socialism. When
a
when
lot
the
of
government
ways.
comes in and tells you what you can do with your corporation,
Yeah.
that's socialism. So what I feel is like the powers that be are pushing socialism are like, we can use this as an excuse to infiltrate corporations and blah
Yeah.
blah 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 and start controlling this internet space. So the internet space is now communist.
I'm of the opinion, though, that if we believe in freedom of speech and you create something that's so big that it's essentially a town square, which is what I think these platforms are, if you ban people, especially if you ban people for shit like learn to code, like things that don't make any sense. Like there's people that are getting banned for some pretty ridiculous ideas.
Yeah.
That as soon as you start doing something like that, you are going against the fundamental ideas this country is founded on.
Absolutely.
Freedom of speech. I think
Yeah.
it's incredibly important that if you have someone saying something that you think is wrong or is hurtful, there should be an avenue where people can examine that and talk about it and combat it with good speech.
Yeah.
With speech that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, a couple of years ago, or last year, I forget. No, it was about a couple of years ago. I was lambasted for defending white nationalists. When they first got deplatformed, some of them got deplatformed, or just white nationalists, period. I'm like, well, if this is how these people feel, let's listen to them. Let's listen to their gripes. What are they mad about, right? And then people are like, oh, how could you? These people are racist. I'm like, I don't care if they're racist. Like, that doesn't affect me, right? Like, I'm not asking them for a job, so they can't be racist towards me. You know what I mean? But when you have these groups that people call fringe, I feel like the people that are fringe are the test for freedom of speech. It's not the people in the middle. It's the fringe groups on the outside. If they don't have freedom of speech, everybody in the middle is screwed. So I stood up and I was like, yo, let these dudes talk. Like, stop doing that. Like, I don't care, if they're racist or whatever. People call me names. But then now you see it coming down, and we lost, Louis Farrakhan. He got deplatformed. He lost his verification, and it's like, he's like,
Was there
Hotep.
anything specifically that he said that allowed them to do that, or did they just make a sweeping? Because they got rid of Milo, they got rid of Gavin McInnes, they got rid of a bunch of people that were on Instagram and Facebook that they hadn't deplatformed. But it didn't seem like there was anything that happened that caused them to do that. It seemed like they just made some sort of a decision that I think was probably based on preparing for the 2020 elections.
Absolutely. So what I think what happened was the banning of Louis Farrakhan. It's just a theory, but they were like, all right, if we ban these conservatives, the conservative crowd is going to just go apeshit, right? But if we throw them Louis Farrakhan, it'll kind of settle things down a little bit because it'll look like we're fair.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. So I'm like, so that's what they did. They're like, let's throw them in there and that'll, smooth things over.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
this
that's on
seems weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they have to justify. Like, no, we got rid of him too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a strange time because even though there is Gab and there's Minds and there's a couple other startups that are they're trying to make their way, and the Jordan Peterson one, and there's nothing that really stands out. And once a giant group of people starts using something, unless it's like what's hilarious is when one of them vanished, like MySpace. How fucking badly did they manage MySpace?
Oh, man.
Because MySpace had it all.
Yeah.
They had everybody.
Yeah,
and then it just fucking died. And it's still around, but now it's like some fringe music publishing platform. It's very weird. It still exists. But what Twitter is right now and what Facebook is right now and what Instagram is right now, it seems like there's no real competitors. Specifically YouTube. There's no real competitors to these people.
Because when I don't want to, dogpile on, Minds or Gab or anything. But the problem is when you build a social network, and this is why I will not build a social network, at least not into the next 10 years, you have to understand that you can't build a social network that mimics another one. It has to be different. That's why Snap is still here, right? Snap is inside a certain demographic. That's my daughter's, generation.
Right.
That's them, right? They're on Snap. So when you build these things, you really have to sit down and say, like, what are we going to focus on? Like with Minds, right? You post videos, you post photos, and then how do the photos appear, right? So when I look at Minds is my Instagram. When you look at Minds on mobile, the font's really small. So it's like, I can't read this. So I'm just going to use this for photos. When I put the photos, it pops up, right? So it's like, is Minds going to go that route? Are they going to go the video route? Are they going to go the tweet route? You got to pick one and then grow from there. If you look at Twitter didn't have all these features in the beginning. You just had tweet. That's it. There was no threads. You know what I mean? There's none of that.
Yeah.
So you have to start at your core. But the other problem they do is they try to build these social networks completely robust, right? With all the bells and whistles of the giants. Nah, bro. You got to start small and slim and then let your audience tell you what the next feature is. So
what would you, if you were going to start one up, what would it be? Or do you not want to give out that information?
No, it's not. I don't want to give it out information. I think information should be free. But, I hate the idea that people want to create social networks. I'm like, they exist. Let's use the ones that exist, and let's just figure out how to make them better, right?
But when you do that, then those have so much power because they can dictate who's on and who's not on.
Right. So what you do is when you have something like a Twitter, you use your Twitter to congregate your minds, right? But then your Bills of the world, your Andrew Torbas of the world have to listen to the community and then curate their product around what the community needs, right? Andrew Torba figured out with the dissenter when he found out, the internet is blocking comments. So he created, you can comment on anywhere on the internet, and then Google Chrome smashed it, right? They said, get that out of here.
Yeah, why did they do that? What was the justification for getting rid of that?
They want to censor. They want to censor information.
Is that what they want to do, or they want to keep a competitor from using their platform and profiting off of it? That's how I looked at it. I looked at it from a marketing or a business perspective.
Nah, they ain't worried about
because it could be. But if it becomes huge, I mean, anything can become huge if it's useful. Yeah, and it seemed useful to me that they were going to be able to comment on anything. You'll have like a little link, and if you use Gab, you can comment on anything that comes up. Yeah,
you can look at it like that. I don't. I feel like their budgets are so huge. Their cash reserves are so huge that they're not worried about competition at all. What they're worried about is controlling thought, and that's their primary goal. Control thought, right, for the betterment of the ruling class. And that's, to me, that's the end all be all of it all. But these people that create tech products, like when we create Coinbits app, or for example, my app Jiffitize, you can only do one thing on Jiffitize. The only thing you can do is save a video or GIF from Twitter.
I always called it GIF. Is it GIF?
I think it's GIF. I think it's GIF.
I don't think I ever hear anybody say it.
GIF could be correct. Could be correct.
What do you call it, Jamie?
I call it GIF.
Yeah. GIF. Okay. GIF. GIF is peanut butter, right?
GIF is peanut butter. But our app does one thing, right? And people love it. When I first came on as a co-founder, this app did more than that. And when it did more than that, it didn't do as well as it does now.
What did it used to do?
It had incentives to share the app. You could edit GIFs. You could put text on them, crop them, all types of it had an editor in there. So I was like, take this editor, toss it out. We had a keyboard. It still has a keyboard, but I was like, took some of the functionalities and I just started taking stuff out. Just like, get this out of here, get this out of here, get that out of here, and slim it down, right? As soon as we slimmed it down, we gave it a new face, boom, our revenue quadrupled.
What's it again? Tell people that want to get it.
Yeah, Gifitize.
Gifitize. There it is. Jamie's got it.
Yeah,
Gifitize.
Gifitize.
The ultimate Twitter GIF downloader.
Yeah. And this thing's about to be super huge. We have a gallery coming soon, and that's going to be awesome. Going to be perfectly curated. I'll speak to my partner Simone this morning about that.
That's one of the fun things about Twitter. When someone says something stupid, and then you look at all the GIFs underneath it, all the memes and GIFs.
Yeah. So we empower people. Like Black Twitter's on our app. So whenever there's a new video out, if something funny happens and you're using it as a reaction. So on iOS, there's no way to save it. Now you can with our app. But our app only does one thing. And they love it, right? That's the core of the business. What's the core of Minds? What's the core of Gab? What's the core feature? Does anybody know? There is not a core feature.
Yeah, I would say just something as an alternative to traditional media.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there is no uniqueness. Where there is no uniqueness, you can't compete. You have to first create uniqueness. Or fill a need. There's no need for me to be on these other platforms.
Well, the problem is when you get on those other platforms and there's no one there, and you go, let me go back to Twitter real quick.
Yeah, and that's why I say when you build a social network, before you build a network, before you build the platform, you have to build the network.
Well, it's interesting if you go back to like 2003 when MySpace was king, and then you imagine what the world would be like 16 years later. No one would have saw this coming. No one would have saw all these social media platforms and that it's used as a way of breaking news now. I mean, especially in places that don't have real objective news. So if you're in some country that's some war-torn country and some horrible shit is going down, you see the news breaking on Twitter before anywhere. Which is really interesting.
Oh yeah, that's why I tell people like screw Facebook and Instagram. The news breaks on Twitter. By the time I show my friend shows me a video, I'm like, I saw that on Twitter like 2 weeks ago, bro. Because he's on Facebook or he's on Instagram.
Right.
So it's like, how do you market a product or market yourself when you're 2 weeks behind?
Is
you're
everything
not relevant.
2 weeks behind on Instagram, though? I get a lot of shit on Instagram, too.
But you're Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I am.
So it's a bit different, you know what I mean?
I guess,
And it depends on who you're surrounded by, right?
Right.
So when we talk about a network, it's like, who are the people connected to you?
Who are you following? Who you interacting with? Yeah.
Right.
But I get like, well, that's not true. I was going to say I get like most of the fucked up videos of news stories of bad things that are happening in the news come to me on Instagram. But I think
they send it to you.
Yeah, but I think it's even. I think it's even with Instagram and Twitter. People sending me things.
Well, when you're Joe Rogan, even if you're a Hotep Jesus, like people will say to me, "How do you know so much?" I'm like, "Yo, my followers send me like books and links and stuff like that. Like they're just sending it to me. Sometimes I ask, sometimes I don't, but they're volunteering information. So when you're in that position, you can afford it. But so the key to marketing is this. You got your 4 P's of marketing, but the key to marketing is relevance. If what you're talking about is irrelevant, nobody's paying attention to you, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing that makes some of these platforms relevant is the juxtaposition to the big tech giants. You remove the tech giants, are you still relevant? What makes you relevant?
Right. That's where a lot of people that do content, whether they're podcasters or whatever, they probably should be thinking about developing an email list and putting things on their website, having something available independently of these big platforms. I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
Doing what?
But something independent of these big platforms, where like you see all these people that have gotten deplatformed, and I don't think I'm at the risk of that. But if I didn't think these people were just a few years ago. As the climate shifts and people get more and more radical with this idea of deplatforming, I think it becomes like a game of like shooting ducks. People get excited about it. They like taking people out, whether it makes sense or not. And I think there's a lot of that going on where people are calling for people to be deplatformed just because they disagree with them. And so far, these big tech companies have resisted some of it, but not enough of it for my taste.
Yeah. My boy Alex Jones, they got him out of here. I think If I was Alex, my ego would be so huge after getting deplatformed.
Well, when we did a podcast together after he was deplatformed, it was one of the biggest podcasts of all time.
Yeah.
What did it get, like 16 million YouTube videos or something?
That's your highest
views?
one. Yeah.
Meanwhile, YouTube did not demonetize that one. We let them know in advance, just heads up, Alex Jones is coming on.
Yeah.
And then they just took that money. It's interesting how it works, right? Like what they choose to deplatform, what they don't choose to. You know, it's I mean, I don't like the argument that they're doing it for our good. I don't think they are.
Yeah. Well, who made them God? Who made them, mom and said this is good for you? And
do you think they should be forced to follow the First Amendment?
No.
What do you think they should be forced to do? Nothing.
Nothing. I think they should be operating in a manner that doesn't hurt Earth. It doesn't hurt nature, right? If they're polluting or doing something that harms somebody specifically, then yes, right?
So if they become a giant monopoly just because they're better than everything else that's available, like YouTube has become, then they run the show.
But there's always the underground.
Yeah.
Look at hip hop, right? There's always been an underground in hip hop.
Comedy as well.
So you got dudes, so I was talking to somebody today and we were talking about conscious hip hop, and dudes say, oh, there's no money in conscious hip hop. I'm like, what? I'm like, Pharoah Monch tours consistently.
Dead Prez.
Yeah. Tours consistently.
They've never had any mainstream attention at all. The closest thing they had to mainstream is when they were with Dave Chappelle's Block Party.
Okay.
That was about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's like, you don't need mainstream. We don't need mainstream. Here's the thing with mainstream. When you get mainstream, you're that bitch now. You got to play by their rules, and once you break those rules, you get deplatformed. What you need to do is you need to focus on building your own platform so they can't touch you when you get to a certain place.
Say if you were helping me out. I called you in. Hotep Jesus, I need some help.
Right.
What do I do with this platform?
This platform
right here.
Oh, dang.
So what if they come down on us?
All right, so you got to self-host it probably on blockchain. I would definitely BitChute just locked.
How do I self-host it on blockchain?
I don't know.
Blockchain is one of those words that I use that I don't really understand.
Me too. I just say it because it's a cool buzzword, right?
That's a great word.
It's just like,
it sounds like if some dude is a tech guy like yourself, is a tech startup, and you start talking about blockchain, I go, oh yeah. I'll just nod my head. Yeah, blockchain.
Yeah.
My friend uploaded MP3 to the BSV network, maybe.
Okay.
It's just very confusing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to ask him, like, now that it's on there,
yeah,
how are people going to get it? And like, he wanted to just be like the first on there, which he is, sort of. Or it might not be BSV. I might be speaking wrong.
Is that your rapper friend?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, well, he's ahead of this. He's just like him on some of this Bitcoin stuff. So
yeah.
But that's where it's at. And I was like talking to him for that. Like, he's almost my guinea pig. Like, all right, you did it. How you figured it out? Now, how do I get a 3-hour podcast on there?
Right.
And how are people going to get it? And it's like, it's not figured out yet. People are definitely working on it. And every day there's been advances.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know how it's going to go.
I mean, you could build your own cloud.
Yes.
Build your own cloud and self-host. And, you know what else you could do? You could connect with all your other celebrity buddies, pull your resources together, and just build a competitor and then own the space and be like, I'm the new YouTube. It's called Rogan Tube now. You know what I mean? You could do that, and then everybody just runs to your platform. I'd support it.
I'd have to have a way better name.
How do you do that without using Google's cloud services?
What you need to do is buy Vimeo. Vimeo's dying on the vine. That bitch is barely alive.
Maybe.
Well, so these questions that you ask, right? Like
they own the internet, kind of.
Right.
Almost.
So these questions that you ask, I don't know, I don't code, right? So what we do is we get the best tech minds in the building, and we ask them the questions. Hey, answer this. It's not like they can't answer them.
Sure.
Right.
They're going to find solutions. There's always a way. Just got to put the right minds in the room.
The right minds in the room and the right people that are influencers that can get the word out.
Yeah, you got to follow the drop on the napkin rule. And, when you put the drop on the napkin, it spreads out, right? So you got to figure, who's your network, and then, maybe build like 12 people around and make sure that these people are linked, based upon interest, right? So then it starts at those interest points or affinities, and then the next tier grows out from there. But as long as that tight-knit group, all right, so the problem with Gap, right? It's all, people say, oh, it's all Nazis, right? Well, that's that tight knit group.
A tight knit group of Nazis. Gab should sell a shirt that says that. It's not just that though.
It's not just that.
If
at
you have
all.
100 regular folks and one Nazi, that Nazi becomes the defining factor of the group. Like,
Right.
oh, there's Nazis in there.
Right. So, it's not that at all, but there is a strong white nationalist movement that first gravitated over there. If he didn't have that, there would be no Gab.
You think so?
I mean, I don't think so at all.
Really?
Yeah. Like, why? Well, who would go there?
People that got kicked off of Twitter?
But the only people that got kicked off Twitter in the early days were the white nationalists.
Well, who was the first people? Like, if you go back
Gavin
to
McGinnis.
Yeah, Gavin McGinnis is an
Proud
interesting
Boys.
character.
Yeah,
he
he is.
does not identify as a white nationalist,
No, he does not.
and his wife is actually Native American.
Mm-hmm.
He's just made some stupid choices.
Right. Well, I mean, like Baked Alaska was kind of thrown into that.
Yeah, but he just is like a
Conversation.
meme maker. He's
Right.
like a guy who makes funny memes.
It's very funny, right? Very
Yeah.
entertaining. But I think it comes down to who's dangerous or not.
Yeah, well, the Proud Boys became a dangerous idea because once you have a group and you don't control who joins the group, then assholes can join your group, and then your group is made out of assholes. And you're like, well,
Well-
I didn't want it to be assholes, but well, you let anybody in.
The
If you
rule-
let anybody in a group,
Yeah.
I used to have a joke about vegans about that. The problem with any group is the same. Like if you get any group of 100 people, if you're in a room with 100 people,
Yeah.
what's the odds that one of them is going to be a fucking idiot? Well, it's 100%.
Yeah.
One of them is going to be a fucking idiot. Well, if
Right.
you have 300 million people, you're going to have, by odds, 3 million fucking idiots.
Right.
And the joke was a lot of them are vegans.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not there's anything wrong with vegans. It's wrong with a group, and people just identify. They get in that group, and this is my group, and I'm here to represent. And then it's just dummies. It's
Well, the thing with the Proud Boys is the ruling elite are afraid of men. It's a huge soy boy movement coming down the pipe, right? Soy everywhere. If anybody's listening right now, or everybody that's listening right now, soy is bad for you.
it's not good.
It is very bad for
It's
you.
processed nonsense. It
The
gives you
only-
estrogen.
Yes. Well, it activates the phytoestrogens. And has active phytoestrogens that attack the endocrine gland system. Now, when we look at the endocrine gland system, for people in the spiritual world, the endocrine gland system is the physical manifestation of the so-called chakras, right? Now, at the heart chakra, what we have is called the thymus gland. And the thymus gland is the one that controls your sexual maturity. And when you have an endocrine gland disruptor, your sexual maturity is affected. So a man who would ordinarily like women now likes, you see what I'm saying?
But wouldn't you have to have massive quantities of soy for that to take place?
That's subjective based upon your biological structure, right?
I always think of it as more as like a fun thing to say. I don't think, you eat
Well,
too
here's
much
the thing.
tofu, you turn into a bitch.
Well, here's the thing. You can't go in a grocery store and find something that doesn't have soy. When you go look at your Cheez-Its or your crackers, it always just say soy lecithin. It's soy in everything. Soy everywhere, right? They use it as filler for some meats. So the whole vegan movement, right? You go get your vegan
Beyond
burger.
Meat burger, yeah.
Right. A lot of these burgers are soy based.
A lot of them are plant-based for sure. Plant-based oils.
Right. But
Yeah,
soy
which
is
are not good for you.
right. And then you also look at the links between soy and cancer, but that's a whole nother story. But when you have something that's disrupting your so-called chakras, you can see how you can start affecting an entire population of people, right? You start affecting their development at an early age. And then, you got these men who are acting like women who can't even, control their wives. You got some men out here that let another man sleep with their girlfriend, right? And
Out here?
I don't know about out here.
What are you saying out here?
Well, when I say out here, I mean
That's
in this shit.
everywhere out in the world.
Yeah. But
isn't that just people are just kinky into weird shit?
well, no.
You don't think so?
No.
What do you think it is?
I think it's pushed. I think debauchery
Really?
is highly pushed. Yeah.
By who?
The ruling elite, ruling class. I want to
They
say
really
elite
have
because they're
time
not elite.
to sit around and go, you know what we need to do? We need to push debauchery.
Well, when you look at the degradation of Russia, right, before the Bolshevik Revolution, what they do is they come in first with alcohol, right? So they purchase your hops and your barley, and they produce alcohol. Then what they do is they sell the alcohol to the farmer on credit because he ain't got no money, right? Because he been drunk. He hasn't been producing the crops like he should. He falls into credit. He falls into debt. When he falls into debt, he's now a slave to the land he once owned. Now I can sell whatever I want to this population, or give this population whatever I want, because they are now technically my slave. But in order to rule a nation of people, you have to destroy morality. You have to destroy integrity. So you feed them drugs, alcohol, and sex, and then tear apart the family.
But do you think that that's just a natural progression of people's slovenly instincts, or do you think that's some sort of a grand plan?
Do you think people have a slovenly instinct?
Some people do. Yeah. I think some people are lazy, and some people are weak, and some people are greedy, and some people just they lean towards just pleasure without sacrifice and discipline, because it's easy. They just lay in bed and jerk off. I don't think anybody's telling them. I don't think there's any sinister government manipulating their strings that makes them watch porn all day. I think they just...
Well, yeah. It actually, Instagram's a gateway to porn. Instagram, you can't go on Instagram without looking at some booty, right?
Yeah, but it's also a gateway to sunsets and people's kids and muscle cars and
come on, Joe.
Cool shit.
Ain't nobody going on Instagram looking at sunsets. People are going on Instagram to look at booty.
There's a lot of that. No
the
doubt.
Yoga community has went from, hey, check out my bakasana, to check out my backside.
Yeah,
in
there's
these
a lot of
yoga
that.
pants, right?
A lot of yoga pants pics.
Booty. Just booty alone is an industry.
It is a giant industry.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
So what happens is you wake up in the morning, you check your notifications, then your homie tags you, yo, look at this chick. Boom.
Right.
Now you have an erection. What's the first thing you do? You're like, let me go to my browser, open the incognito browser and hit Pornhub. Boom. Now you out of here, right? Now your day's done. You just depleted your energy, right? And this coming out in my book where I talk about, why you shouldn't jerk off and all that stuff. But
you write that you shouldn't jerk off?
Yeah.
Never?
Well, there's a calculation.
You have a jerk off algorithm?
Yeah, there's a jerk off algorithm. It's created by the Taoist sexology. And I think it's your age times 2. No, your age divided by 2 times 100. I forget what it is. It's in my book. I can't remember it. But I got it from the Tao, right? Which is why I don't have it memorized. It's age times 0.2. I think it's age times 0.2. And then to tell you how many days, right? So at my age, I'm 38 now. My age, it's about 7.5 days between ejaculation to maintain who I am.
Really?
Yeah. And
damn.
Yeah. So a man's strength is his balls, right? That's
right.
So every time you deplete yourself, you're not the same man anymore. You lose your superpowers. Now, when you lose your superpowers to some, IG model, it's not even worthy. Your orgasm doesn't feel the same as a natural interaction with a woman.
Right.
You know what I mean?
True.
So you're wasting your superpower on like a fictional fantasy.
So you're wasting a percentage of your vital energy.
Your vital energy, as well as the proteins and minerals and zinc and magnesium and all that stuff that, is lost.
Out.
Yeah. I think it's equivalent to like 2 New York strip steaks, eggs, oranges, and apples or something like that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of vitamins. That's why if a woman...
Depends on the size of the loads you shoot, though, no?
Oh, yeah.
That's
why ladies should swallow.
Whoa, Jesus, ladies.
I'm sorry. That's why you should ingest it if the man is healthy, because it's a full meal. It's a full meal. It's a full meal of nutrients that a man loses.
Is it bioavailable that way? I wonder if anybody's done studies. I bet they have. I bet people have done like nutrition/load studies.
Probably a startup out there trying to do this right now.
Yeah, like calculate into an app.
Where is this conversation gone now? I totally forgot what we were talking about.
Well, we're talking about manipulating you, turning you into a soy boy, making people weak. So you think there's actual, so this is where we differ. You think there's actual manipulation taking place. I think it's just natural instincts.
Nah.
And then I think that people see it around them and then they cater to those natural instincts and then they support those natural instincts. But I think people have a natural instinct to be undisciplined and lazy and just gratuitous and, dive into pleasure before sacrifice and commitment. And
So are we making
discipline.
excuses for it?
Not making excuses. I think it's also the softness of the world we live in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we live in this incredibly easy to get by in world.
Right.
Where the poor people are fat.
Yeah.
There's never been a time in history where poor people are fat.
Yeah. Yeah. That comes down to what's
weird.
in the actual food.
Yeah.
Or so-called food.
It's certainly that. It's certainly the food is garbage. But it's also that there's this strange lack of discipline because it's not necessary. All you have to do is just show up to your job, put in the least amount of effort you can without getting fired, and you can exist.
Right.
That didn't happen in the wild world when people were hunters and gatherers. If you didn't put 100% effort, if you didn't really struggle, you didn't make it, and you weren't a benefit to the tribe, and they kicked your ass out, and you got eaten.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
I do agree with that.
Yeah,
I do agree with that. Discipline is what we have to demand from people. But your culture has to recognize debauchery and shun it and ban it and say like, hey, we don't want this here. You know what I mean? Porn is readily available on Twitter. You can watch it right in your feed. Sometimes I'm scrolling my feed and
I know.
Just like,
that's a weird thing about Twitter, isn't it? That it's a giant platform, but they allow porn.
Yeah. So
when I had Jack on with Tim Pool, and I think Tim Pool didn't even know that porn was legal on it.
Yeah,
right.
I saw that. Yeah.
I found a little bit of information. I don't know how accurate
about
it is.
Tim Pool's Twitter use?
No, on the ejaculation frequency.
Okay, yes.
Recommended by the Tao's.
Yeah, here we go.
It said the most respected of the Tao theorists, Sun Simiao, quoted above, recommends ejaculation no more than once every 20 days for men over 50.
Oh, Jesus.
And no more than once every 100 days for men over 60.
With that, I should be dead. Okay?
And it has to do with,
I
it
should have
says,
no energy. How am I getting everything done?
you're getting age-retarding hormones as you're about to ejaculate, and then there's a level you want to keep before you ejaculate. So like that, you got to balance what you're before you excrete the hormones. That's what it's saying.
So
I just read
tantra.
real quick. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what.
You're supposed to come internally.
And there's a level you can like optimize yourself.
Ejaculation, they call it.
Those people are out of their fucking minds. I'm trying to get rid of this shit. I've always said that it helps you think because too many times with a man, your mind is clouded by sexual desire. If you could just jerk off and then you can think clearly. I used to have a bit about it. I say jerk off first, then think about it. Like if you jerk off and then you want to call a girl, it's because you love her. You're not just trying to fuck. You actually like her as a human being. You want to be around her. You don't just want to be around her for sex. You actually really love her.
Yeah. I think there's a level of discipline, right? So, if you're about to make that risky text message, you might want to shoot your low and reassess it.
That's
right?
what I'm talking about.
But
and then you're like, what the I'm going to watch a fucking documentary. Put that phone down.
But that's for an undisciplined man.
Yes.
Right? So a disciplined man's going to say, no, I'm not going to send this thirst trap, this thirsty comment. I'm going to stay disciplined in who I am because in order to get the woman, I have to stay away from the woman. In
order to get the woman, I have to stay away from the woman.
Yeah. And keeping your vital man energy for me keeps me like on edge. Like I'm always like an animal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I want to release. You see what I'm saying? So what I do is I'll work up that energy and then channel it into work. I'll just immediately pull my laptop out and just bang out because it's like that frustration there. And then you got to release it that way or I'll go running or I'll go work out. You know what I'm saying? But when I get around women with a full sack, I'm not the same as when I'm empty.
Yes.
And you can see the difference in how they're attracted. You sit up different. Your chest pokes out. When you're around other men, you're like a little bit more
edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? After you blow your load, you're kind of like
chilled out.
Yeah.
Non-competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
You hold on to that like fighters. You know how to fight. Go fight.
Well, Mike Tyson never did that. Mike Tyson said, no, I always like to come as much as possible so I'm not distracted. He would just shoot his loads and then beat the fuck out of everybody.
Yeah. Well,
but I think Mike had a lot of extra loads. I think if you had a guess, like his level, he was just an ultra man. You know, it was not a regular man. Yeah. It says a research published by the U.S. National Library of Medicine and National Institutes of Health found that after 7 days of not ejaculating, men's testosterone levels reached 145.7% of the baseline. Mm-hmm. Damn. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is that they didn't observe significant fluctuations from the baseline on days 2 through 5. The research also showed that the peak levels were at day 7.
Yeah.
Risks, Tao. It's actually Tao, by the way. It's Tao. Mm-hmm. It's you say it as Tao,
right.
like
okay.
the Tao of Jeet Kune Do.
Okay.
Risks of too frequent ejaculation. When sex is performed with the recommended Tao frequency, it becomes an inexhaustible source of energy, like a well that never runs dry.
Yeah.
However, when ejaculation frequency exceeds the capacity of the body to fully replenish the semen, man can experience chronic fatigue, low resistance, loss of sex drive, loss of focus, and irritability. Long-term excessive ejaculation can cause chronic low zinc conditions, which can cause chronic fatigue, mental confusion, and significant loss of sexual drive. But what if you're with a freak like that girl Will Harris was talking about? My friend Will Harris was in here the other day, and he was saying he used to meet these girls and go overseas. It's also considered harmful to ejaculate when ill, drunk, or gorged with food. Whoa.
Here's the next line.
Oh, which one? Ejaculation control and discipline is not to be confused with the frequency of sex. There are significant physiologic, what's that word?
Physiological?
I don't think there's supposed to be a period there.
Oh, physiologic and therapeutic benefits to having sex. Frequent sex intercourse maintains a man's interest in the acts as well as his capacity to continue indefinitely until his partner is fully satisfied. So they're saying fuck but don't come.
Yes.
Those people are out of their fucking mind. I come every time I fuck.
Yo, I used to
trying to get rid of this stuff.
I used to fuck
every
with
3
girls.
weeks.
I used to fuck with girls' heads like that.
We would not come?
Yeah.
Really?
They start crying.
Wow.
I had a girl like straight down and break up crying. I can't please you. Is it me? Is it I'm just like, no, I just wanted you to be happy. How you feel? I feel good. Good. Then I go and I hit the laptop and it just turns them on.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they love that. They love that.
Right. Because like nature wants them to get you to come.
Yes. Women only respect a disciplined man. You know,
that's true.
Once a woman can drop your defenses, she's no longer attracted to you. If she can control you, she's not attracted to you. A woman wants a man she could chase. In my book, I talk about how women are the apex predator. They're the ones that chase after sex. I mean, they can have sex endlessly, right? Once we nut, it's like we're pretty much done. Like, give me a couple of minutes to recharge. But they could keep going. You know what I'm saying? So they're, technically like, freaks or whatever. But just because she's undisciplined in her sexual energy doesn't mean you have to be. And if she feels like she has to go outside of the relationship to go get her fix, that's on her. That has nothing to do with you. Your aspirations as a man are higher than sex. A woman's role is to create life and support the man. The man's role is to create forging the future of humanity. Building things and innovating.
It is true that a woman is not attracted to a guy without discipline. Like men who are lazy and weak, that is a giant turnoff to a woman. But if a woman is hot, she could be pretty lazy.
Absolutely. They are the laziest people ever.
But we don't care. Men don't care. I don't care if a girl's lazy. She's hot.
Well,
as long as her body holds up. As long as she can get to the gym.
I used to make girls work to get me, man.
Really?
Yeah, like... I would say, I'm working on this project, I'm going to send you a spreadsheet over. I need you to go organize it. And if she'd say no, I'd just be like, all right, well, you're worthless to my life. Right? I need somebody that's going to build with me, right?
What if she's building on her own shit?
Fuck her shit. Go build your shit. Right? If you need help, I'll help you.
Right.
But,
so you want a partner. You don't want just a lover. That's what you're saying.
No.
You want someone to help you.
No, I want her to prove her worth.
Whoa.
She got to be worthy to get me. Like, it's easy to get a girl. It ain't easy to get a good man. You only going to find one Hotep Jesus in your life. I could find a ton of you, shorty.
Wow.
You everywhere on Instagram. After Joe Rogan, they're going to be everywhere. So, but
now, some would say that that's a sexist generalization.
Sure. I don't care. Like, we can have that conversation. Like, bring me on your platform. We can talk. And I'll if you want to call it sexist, it is what it is.
Have you ever had a conversation with like a radical feminist about this kind of thinking?
No, they won't talk to me. They all block me.
They block you?
Yeah, they all block me. The whole black left feminists. The reason why they block me is because they can't beat me. Right? When we have conversations, I'm so objective that it's too dangerous for them to engage with me.
How so?
Because I'll be like, it's sexist, yes, and so let's continue the conversation, and then that's where they don't want to go, because then they're going to have to provide reinforcement and evidence, and they're dealing with an educated man, and I'm going to come with my evidence and facts.
So you don't have a problem being sexist. That's what the problem is, because if someone calls you sexist and you go, yeah, I'm sexist.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's like if somebody called me racist. Sure, whatever. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care about these isms that you create. I understand nature. I understand myself.
That's an interesting thing that I see today that I find really strange, is that people that are denying evolutionary biology. I mean, there's decades of research being done on why people behave the way they behave, what women are attracted to, what men are attracted to, and what the spectrum is.
And then they say science is racist.
Yeah, that's what's weird. Science is sexist, or fuck your science. That's fucking fascinating to me. When people don't want to look at it because it doesn't support their ideology. They want to deny all this research, deny all these really objective geniuses that have been studying all this stuff. And the best minds in the field have come to these conclusions based on just insurmountable amounts of data. Not interested.
Yeah, so fine.
The patriarchy.
Yeah, I have a shirt that says I am the patriarchy. Like, no matter what you throw at me, I'm just going to embrace it. I'm going to show you, yeah, it's real. There is a patriarchy. There's also a matriarchy. You need to handle your matriarchy and stop worrying about the patriarchy, because if you handled your matriarchy, the patriarchy wouldn't be your problem. The problem is you don't know how to be a woman.
What do you think is a good piece of advice for women on how to be a woman?
A good piece of advice on how to be a woman?
Hotep teaches women.
Hotep teaches women.
What's a good piece
Emotional
of advice?
Control.
Emotional control.
And so the number one problem I see with women is, damn, this is a lot here, right? All right, let's go here.
Okay.
Women let their friends, they tell their friends their business.
Yes.
Stop that.
Stop telling your friends your business.
Stop telling, like, when I have problems with, my girl, or in the past when I had problems with women, I ain't run back, yo, guess what, man, yo, man. We don't do that.
If my friends do that, they better be laughing.
Right.
If my friend goes, dude, you're not going to believe what this chick said to me. If they give me a hard time about it, but if they go, dude, I don't know, man, she wants me to quit my job. Like, hey, don't do that to me, man.
Yeah.
Don't put that shit on me.
Yeah, so I think women also, you have to understand that they're giving this information to a friend who is also single. When a woman gets in a relationship, she loses a friend, right? Because now you have less time to spend with your bestie. So the bestie's jealous of the relationship. So whenever you go back and tell her, she's never going to give you sound advice.
True.
She's always going to take your side.
Yep.
So you have to judge your friends and say, well, if I'm giving this information to my friend, is she an objective friend or is she a subjective friend? She's going to feed my ego. And if you can't analyze that on your own, then you'll never have peace in your relationship. Because the worst thing to do is, here's the problem. The relationship's built on trust. So if a man and a woman come together and you tell all my business to your friend, where's the trust? Where's our privacy? We have none.
Right, we have none.
We don't have a relationship. You have a relationship with your friend. So go be with your friend. I don't got time to be, something happens in my personal life. You're going to go tell this strange girl what happened in my personal life, something I told you that was private, to relate it to something else that could be happening in our relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
but I think we
violation.
have different instincts. Women have the instinct to gossip. They love it. It's just, it comes from that hunter-gatherer culture, where back in the day, that's what would happen. The men would go out and try to hunt the food, and the women would stay home and they would talk shit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, discipline yourself, women.
Yeah.
Discipline yourself, ladies. Another thing, get a hobby, a healthy one. Women don't have hobbies. Their hobbies are all like consumerism.
Some women don't have hobbies.
Oh, all of them.
Not all of them.
Oh.
I know women with hobbies.
All of them.
That's not true.
I'm just messing with you.
That's not true.
But, in my book, I say, say all because it gets the people going.
Right. It gets them upset.
Yeah, it gets people going because they always go, oh, no, it's some. It's like, I know it's some, you moron. You know what I'm saying? But I say all just to get the people going. But majority of women don't have hobbies, Do something.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're inundated with advertising, Their hobbies become consumerism. And retail, therapy, or I do makeup for fun. No, you don't do makeup for fun. That's not what you do. That's not a hobby. Makeup's not a hobby. I'm sorry, ladies. A hobby is something that develops your individual person, something that makes you better.
Some kind of a discipline, an art form,
right? Some way to express yourself.
Yeah, some physical thing that you do.
Yeah, like one of my hobbies is chess, right? That helps me focus. When I see that my attention span is getting short because I spend too much time on social media, I go to chess and I'll spend time on chess to bring that back to reality.
Do you play physical chess or do you play online?
Online.
Yeah.
I can do OTB, but I do most.
What's OTB?
Over the board.
Oh, what does that mean?
That means physical.
That's what you call it?
Yeah, it's called OTB. Yeah.
Do you do speed chess where you hit the timer, or do you do regular chess?
Well, online I do speed chess. I do 5-minute games.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world.
I've been scared of chess. I've always been scared of chess. I have an obsession with games. I have real problems, and chess is it's one of them. I've played it a little bit, but I'm like, fuck, this could take over my life.
Yeah. If I'm not careful, I'll be sleeping and playing chess.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I'll be chilling, we'll be having a conversation, and I'll space out and be doing chess problems in my head. So that happens sometimes, a lot, especially on days that I play a lot of chess.
I remember Howard Stern was really getting into chess, and he was taking private lessons, and he was talking about it all the time. And I think he found the same thing. Do you remember that? I think he found the same thing. I think he just got too obsessed with it. He was like, I can't fucking do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, one of my life goals is to be a chess master one day.
Really?
Yeah.
And when you say chess master, what do you have to do to be a master?
Okay, so you have national master, then you have international master, and then you have game master, or the GM, I forget what it's called. National master, you have to participate in, I believe, one of the tournaments, one of the, I forget the federation, but you have to enter one of these tournaments, and you have to place a certain, I think it's maybe top 2 or top 3 at a certain tournament. Don't quote me on this stuff, but you have to go through the tournaments. And I think in order to become international, you have to first become national master, and then national master, you can go be international, if I'm not mistaken, and then, GM.
Do you ever see the video of Eddie Fisher? Or Bobby Fischer.
Yeah.
When Bobby Fischer was walking down this row of chess games, he was playing 10 different games simultaneously.
Yeah. The champ now, Carlsen, does something similar, where Carlsen will play, several people, or he'll play without a board. That always interested me.
I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
This dude I knew who went to prison was playing with this pool hall that I used to play at in White Plains, executive billiards. And this kid was a chess master. He was like a 16-year-old, I don't know, master. I mean, he's a chess genius.
Right.
16-year-old kid. And he was playing with this dude who was like in his 40s who had been in prison. He learned how to play chess with no board in prison. So they were just sitting across from each other talking, saying the moves, and then they would both like recognize where the pieces were on the board.
Yeah. Really
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that level of visualization is where humanity has to take itself. That's why I say chess is great, because it allows you to visualize. And in order to manifest your desires in this world, you have to be able to visualize what you want. The more you can focus, the more you can visualize, the better your mind is, I believe. Because our life is based upon visualization. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Women need to get back to that too.
Visualizing goals.
I think women are very spiritual. So in Africa, there's this... I'm slipping on my studies. I studied this a long time ago. But the man holding the child, and the woman is pointing up to the sky, right? And it's like the man is like that earthly thing, like we handle things in the physical, and the woman's sort of like that intuitive being. Women have to get back to being that intuitive being, because if you notice, our women always seem to warn us about stuff, right? Like, oh, don't do this. Like, damn, I should have listened to her that time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They have to get back to their spiritual nature, and I think a lot of them get away from that, and that'll ground them too, and they won't need so much emotional support from friends and family because they're back in their spiritual nature.
Well, how does a woman do that?
You can start with meditating. Being happy with just being alone with yourself. A lot of people can't be alone with themselves.
Yeah.
They always need like some sort of device or
Isn't it
media.
interesting that it's attractive when people are capable of being alone?
Yeah.
Like, I remember these two girls were talking about some guy that one of them was dating. And she goes, yeah, he's really into his career, which is a huge turn on. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, he just needs time. He's disciplined. He works all the time. He's always working on his career, which is a huge turn on. And I was like, well, you two little cluckers.
Well, women have to get back to that too. Like, y'all gotta learn how to pick a good man. Sometimes y'all are picking crap men based upon the money or things that they have. You get in a relationship, you find out he's $100,000 in debt, and he's a douche, right?
Yeah.
Even though he's got these things. I think women have to get better at seeing potential in men.
But don't they have to be tricked a few times before they can see the problems?
Yeah,
that's
part
the problem.
Of experience. Yeah,
That's a fucking dirty thing for a girl. Let some loser fuck you and go, God damn it.
Yeah.
Thought I had him. Thought I had a winner.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a victim of that. Well, not a victim, but, I've done that to women myself. Sorry, ladies. Everybody I did wrong
Back
like
in
that.
the day.
Yeah, I've done some wrong stuff.
Well, you become a different person as time goes on.
Yeah,
It's
you grow
just
from it.
part of evolution of the human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think society's expectations on women are, it's very difficult for a man to understand it. We see it from the outside, but to feel it as a woman, it's got to be very different. I mean, and there's a lot of women out there that are looking for a man, like a successful man. They're looking for a successful man, and they want to attach themselves, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's not a goal of men, so it's very difficult for us to understand that. Our goal for obviously we're generalizing, right?
Yeah.
But our goal is to be successful ourselves.
Right. Well, you can't know what man you want unless you know who you are. And a lot of people are getting in relationships without being in a relationship with themselves first. So when in order to have a sound relationship, you have to know your socioeconomic stance. It's sad when you get into a relationship with a conservative and you're liberal and you start arguing about Donald Trump. And a relationship breaks because he's on one side. These are the conversations that you need to have up front. And if you don't know where you are politically and socioeconomically, for example, they say a lot of relationships break up because of money, right? And you got one person's a bad spender, the other one's thrifty, right? These are the conversations you need to have first. How do you manage your money? Are you good with your money? And if you guys don't agree with how you want to pool your resource and how you want to pool your money and what you want to do with it in the future, some people, you might get in a relationship with a girl and she's like, I want a Porsche, I want a Land Rover. And I'm like, I want a business. I want a VC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have two people that are going separate directions. One's going this consumer route. One's going an independent, producer route. So you have to first see, are you a consumer? Maybe you need to be with a consumer. Are you a producer? You don't need to be with a consumer. You need to find somebody that's a producer. So if you agree on socioeconomics, you'll have a better relationship with people. But you have to know what you want out of life first, and then find people connected based upon that, not the physical looks and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people think they want something because it's very difficult to attain. They see these things and they go, "Oh, that's the prize."
Yeah, well, the thing is, these stuff aren't hard to obtain. Like, getting a Porsche isn't hard, right?
It's hard for a lot of people. Depends on how much you make, what you do, what kind of job you're trapped in.
Hard is relative.
Right.
Like I tell my kids, hard is basically undiscovered. That's all it is, right? So, for example, when you first do algebra, it's hard, right? But that's just because it's new. So hard equals new. That's what hard means. It's new because once you do algebra 3, 4, 5, 10 times, it's not new anymore, and therefore it's not hard. So once you break past the newness of a thing, it's no longer hard. Like building a business. It's not new to me, therefore it's not hard. It's very easy for me to build a business.
Yeah.
Because I've done it so many times in my life. You see what I'm saying? Jiffitize is cash flowing 4x what it was doing when I first joined the company. And all I did was make a few tweaks. But that's only because I'm not new to the tech startup space. I've been working with over 20 startups. Over 20 startups in a matter of 2-3 years as a consultant. So this stuff, when people say, oh, it's hard, it's like, no, it's not hard. It's new and you're an idiot and you don't know what you're doing. It's not hard to achieve anything in this life. I used to work for 50 Cent, right? And when I lived in New Brunswick, right by Rutgers, I wasn't really a 50 Cent fan. I enjoyed his music, but I wasn't a fan to buy a poster. I bought this poster. It was him and G-Unit, and he had this big stash of money. And I was like, yo, this poster motivates me. You fast forward 10 years and some other things I did to get close to 50, and I actually work with 50. That was technically hard, right? It's not easy to get next to 50. But when I did it, it happened like that. Then I started working with Carmelo Anthony.
So you're saying once it actually happened, it turned out it wasn't actually hard.
No, hard.
But it's hard for some people.
No, they're just not disciplined. Hard is dealing with yourself. That's what's hard. Can you defeat your own mind? So when I wake up every morning, the only thing I got to defeat is doubt. It's the only thing I have to defeat. Once I defeat doubt, I live in a limitless world, infinite possibilities. I can literally do anything. So people told me, oh, in order to be in tech, you need $1 million and this, that, and the third. Dude, I got equity in 3 tech companies. 3 tech companies. And I'm not rich. I didn't, put up millions to get into these companies. I'm part of these companies because I built me. And it wasn't hard. It really wasn't hard to get into these companies. I just had something to offer and they saw value in me. I want to be the next Elon Musk. I want to be the next Bill Gates. I want to be the guy that Zuckerberg hates. You see what I'm saying? I want to be the guy that builds the new Silicon Valley on the East Coast. Those are my aspirations. So when people tell me what you can and can't not do and it's hard, I'm like, dude, I'm selling Bitcoin. How many black dudes sell Bitcoin? None.
I don't know anybody who sells Bitcoin.
Exactly. And people are telling me this is hard. It's not hard. You get what you want. And I didn't get into Bitcoin out of dumb luck. I manifested that. I said I wanted to sell Bitcoin. How can I manifest it? Then I let it go and the universe brought me the opportunity and then it happened. When I first said I want to be a VC, first thing I want to do is start building a portfolio. I didn't look for companies. They found me. I just had to ask the universe and it presented opportunities and I just had to.
So what do you mean by you had to ask the universe?
I had to put the intention out there.
So do you think that literally by thinking about things, you can make them happen?
You can make the opportunity present itself. And then you have to be ready to take advantage. So we got to walk through the story of the 50 Cent thing, right? So I get invited to his bus launch, right, for the company. Now I'm sitting on the bus. They moved me to the back because of security reasons. So I'm in the back of the bus. When the bus start moving, in my head, fear kicks in and doubt kicks in. And I'm telling myself, I should just hop. With the bus stopped, and I said, I should just hop up and just start screaming, I'm on the bus with 50 Cent. And I'm like, nah, don't do that. They invited you out here. You got to sit here, and that's not right. And, all these things society says is right. So I stand up and I go, yo, I'm on a bus with 50 Cent. Right? And then the whole crowd rushes the bus. After the crowd finishes, they take one of the energy drink shirts, they throw it on me, throw the hat on me, they bring me to the front of the bus. Now I'm sitting next to 50 Cent. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm in a 50 Cent company. But it's because I started off with defeat and doubt. But also listening to my intuition. My intuition said to hop up and do that. Right? But the opportunity was presented to me. I didn't create the opportunity. They DM'd me and said, yo, we want you to come. I didn't ask. They invited me. But it's because I kept putting that 50 Cent energy out there. You see what I'm saying? I kept putting that out there. Like, I want to mess with 50 Cent. I want to mess with, for 10 years. I've been putting that information, that energy out there. 50, if you listening, yo, holla at me. I want to work with you again. But I just really love 50 and his attitude. And he's just really a fun dude. You know,
he had a funny thing about Father's Day. You see his rant about Father's Day?
Oh yeah,
difference between Father's Day and Mother's Day. It's very funny.
But you know, the universe, anything you ask for, it will present the opportunity. The only thing is, are you woke enough to see it? Can you identify it when it hits, and can you defeat the fear?
And do you have all the other bases in your life covered where you have the bandwidth to tackle something that's difficult? Correct.
Yeah. But usually the universe only presents you opportunities you can handle. They don't. Usually it doesn't, because if you couldn't handle it, you wouldn't be able to recognize it.
Do you say this like the universe presents this to you? Is this like a spiritual concept? I mean, is this like, are you manifesting reality with your thoughts and intentions? Do you really believe that?
All of that.
Why do you believe that?
Because I lived it. I experienced it.
But you lived it and you're successful at it. See, that's my perspective on that is always, you hear about things like The Secret and the law of attraction. You hear that from people that are successful. They say, oh, I willed it into existence.
Yeah.
But what about the people that tried to will it into existence and nothing ever worked out right?
Well, ora et labora, right? Ora et labora is Latin for work and pray. A lot of people go into The Secret and they just praying, but they ain't working.
Right. That's important.
You know? So
I do see what you're saying. I don't look at it in the same way, but I look at it in a similar way. I think there is something to intention. There's something, and there's something also to having that kind of faith to believe in intention, whereas I think a lot of people, they're reluctant to give into that because it seems too woo-woo and it seems like some crystals and fucking astrology and horse shit. You know what I mean?
Because there's a lot of that out there.
A lot of that out there.
The new age has ruined the law of attraction. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, just speaking into existence happen. No, that's not true. You have to first educate yourself. So when we talk about Hotep, right? When you talk about Hotep, you got to bring up the 5% nation. You got to bring up supreme mathematics, 0 cipher, 1 knowledge, 2 wisdom, 3 understanding. But it first starts at the number 1, right? Number 1 is knowledge. So the problem is people are trying to manifest, but they ain't got no knowledge of anything.
Right.
So how do you manifest something with no knowledge?
Got to educate yourself.
You got to first start educating yourself. And
discipline yourself so that you can educate yourself as well.
Right. And also, knowledge is the springboard for imagination. Right? So if there's a complicated calculus problem, but you don't know what calculus is, how can the intuition feed you insight or inspiration to solve a calculus problem? You first have to have the knowledge of calculus. Then when you get it, you get all this influx of inspiration, like Einstein talks about. You know, he sits down, he kind of meditates, and then the inspiration comes. But the inspiration can only talk to you based upon your understanding. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the problem is people are out here not educating themselves. You know, I my day begins and ends with educating myself. Begins, ends, and during the day, I'm just reading books, hopping between books and reading and listening to lectures. And people think I'm deep. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, whatever, I'm intelligent. But really, my secret is consuming as much information as possible. That's my secret. And then from that, I'm able to say, oh, well, you know, or, you know, studying history, you know, you can do a lot of things. But if you're not educating yourself or doing, you got to do something. Like, just start. You know what I mean?
When you said you're going to write a new book, you're in the middle of writing a book. Are you putting this kind of stuff in your book?
All right, so the next
guidelines like that. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But guidelines like that is, I think that's very critical. When someone sees someone who's successful and they see someone who's disciplined and focused, like, okay, what are your guidelines? How do you do this? And how, like, the way you're laying it out right now.
So this book here, right? This
Twitter
book,
marketing.
Yeah, this book is the how. How do you do it, right? Like, how do you physically build a brand from start? Using Twitter as a platform. Now, this book can actually be used for any platform. I just use Twitter as the example, right? But this is the how that people won't tell you about, or marketers won't tell you about. This is the how, right? It's all the secrets in there. Now, the next book I have is with the editor. It's done. It's written. That's for men and how to have peaceful relationships with women, right? Because as we see, there's a gender war in America. So we need to create peace. And what I say is the fault isn't on the women. The fault is on the men, right? So that book was... the cover was designed by Rollo Tomasi, the rational male author. Then we have the book of Hotep, which is what you're talking about, which is already written. I wrote it 2-3 years ago. And it's that structure for your life so you can manifest these things, so you can use spirit in your work to manifest these things. If you're a Christian, there's secrets in the Bible that show you how to, manifest things. So you have to, you can't ignore your spiritual self. If you ever watch Doctor Strange, she pushes him out and his astral body comes out. So the human being is dual nature. We have our physical body and we have our astral body. If you never connect with your astral body, you only using half of your potential.
What's your astral body?
It's basically an ethereal version of your physical body, but it's not bound by time and space.
So what do you mean by that, though? What does that mean?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Ethereal version of your spiritual body.
Like it's not physical. You can't touch it.
Okay.
Right? You can't like interact with it. Right?
Okay.
But it can travel through space and time. Right? Or we talk about our higher selves. Or we can, to make things more understandable, because all this stuff is based upon subconscious mind, right? So you use your subconscious mind to use your conscious mind to program your subconscious mind. Then the subconscious mind communicates it to your higher mind. Then the higher mind, that's where the magic stuff happens. It's out of your control now. The higher mind or spirit or God or Jesus, whatever you want to believe in, that's when they start working on this stuff. But it has to be a part of you. And then life starts reflecting what's in your subconscious mind. But the astral body thing is kind of like something that we use to either communicate with people in long distance, travel through time, to see things that have happened in foreign lands at different times, get inspiration. So when we look at Think and Grow Rich, right? The book Think and Grow Rich, what does it tell you to do? It tells you create a council of, I think he says dead people or something like that, right? So create a council of dead people, your council, right? So if I did mine, it'd probably be like Malcolm X, Tupac, Nipsey Hussle, like a whole bunch of people, right? And you have this congregation meeting of minds. You can't do that with your physical body. So who's going to be present at this meeting? Your astral body has to be present at this meeting. So that's an example of how we've seen that science taught in Think and Grow Rich, right? So we can't say this stuff is like.
But aren't you saying when you're talking about like a council of dead people, you're saying like your imagination. You're looking at this council of dead people. Like, what would Tupac do? Like that kind of shit. Like how would I draw inspiration from Muhammad Ali? How would I take the knowledge of fill in the blank, whoever's dead that's brilliant. Yeah.
So there is that aspect, right? Where it's your imagination, right?
What would Jesus do?
Right. What would Jesus do?
That's the thing.
Right. So, but what we have to understand is there's going to be a sliver of inspirational insight. So let's say 90% of your meeting with these people are pure physical, your mind imagining these things.
Right.
Then there's that one sliver, that 10% that slides through that gives you that piece of inspiration that you never would have thought about. It's like an idea. Sometimes you're chilling and like, oh yeah, that idea that just pops in your head. That is what happens. Now, once you get more advanced, you can get more of that influx of inspiration from, spirit or whatever you want to call it.
Get more advanced, meaning practice this all the time?
Yeah. Practicing, using your astral body to project out and being in another space. Happy Gilmore calls it his happy space. Right? You remember that movie?
Yeah.
All right, so what did he do in order to manifest his dreams? He went to his happy place to detach himself from his physical problems. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then he came back and he put and it went do. It's like he did the impossible. So it's like they trying to let you know.
So if you were to construct this and put this down into guidelines, you're basically streamlining the process of how to be a successful and how to just make your dream come true, make your reality, how to be a person who's got their shit together.
Yeah. The main thing is problem with people, especially young people, is they don't know what they want to do. They don't know their passion or their purpose. And again, that just comes back to knowledge. Are you studying? Take your interest and study it. When you get bored with it, drop it, move on to the next thing. But, over the years, I've collected a lot of skills all of them are being used now. You know, like I'm not a
Right.
Photoshop guy, but I know how to use Photoshop. But that happened because at one point I was running a blog. I had to know how to edit something or do something, you know what I mean? So just because it's not a skill you want, like at one point I had a photography business. When MySpace was popping, I had a photography business. Now, I don't do photography anymore, but I understand it. So when I'm someplace, I can still use these skills, whether it's for a product or something or event, I can still use these skills to my advantage. You know what I mean? So even if you don't like that skill at that time, it might come in play later on, right? But the bottom line is you have to start with your knowledge and then allow the spirit or intuition to feed it, right? Allow it to feed it. Like I don't use my logical mind. Like my logical mind is only for after inspiration. Right? You get that?
Yeah. So you get inspired, and then you use your logical mind to figure out how to make this work.
Right. And that's where we have to be. Let the logical mind just carry out the menial tasks. Let the higher mind or intuition lead the way.
Now, do you think of these things as being like separate entities, or is this all a
one.
part of you?
It's all one.
So you think when you think of your higher mind, how do you visualize this? Do you visualize this as something that you don't necessarily have control of, but you can tap into?
Yeah, I guess you can look at it like that. Like, you know, I'm not the Dalai Lama on this topic. You know what I mean? But, you know, I for one exercise, what I might do is I'll put light around my head. I'll visualize a sphere of light around my head. And you see this in religious texts and in art. You always see Jesus Christ or saints. They always have this glow around their head. They call it a halo, right? But really the halo is like your aura, right? But also the second aspect is that when I want to use my brain in an advanced way, I can start the firing of neutrons or whatever the technical term is by visualizing something. Even if I want to visualize, thunderstorms in my head, that'll get the brain working, But usually like light, if I want to do distant healing, right? Let's say you tell me you sick, right? I probably shouldn't be saying this. But if I want to do distant healing, I would envelop you in light. I would sit at home, rest, make sure you're asleep. Then I would picture light around Joe Rogan.
Do you think that you can do that? You think you can actually heal people from a distance?
No. You're not healing anything. What you're doing is you're giving the intention to God that you want this person to be healed, and God or the universe is healing. We can't heal a damn thing.
Right, but you really think that by thinking about something, you can put that intention out and it'll change the result?
Yes.
Really? What makes you think that?
Well, they have these scientific tests. I haven't studied this in a while, but there's a test where they fire like these electrons or something like that. And the electrons are supposed to be like on a predictable path. And then when they introduce people to the experiment, the intentions, you know what I'm talking about?
The wave spirit. The problem with that is that's misinterpreted.
Okay.
That the real change is in observing it.
Yes.
But the change is in observing it because you're measuring it. So by measuring it, you're changing the pattern. Like if you talk to a real physicist about it, they'll say they've added all this woo-woo to this.
Right.
That's unnecessary. Because really what it is just the tools and the instruments they use to measure it are changing the results.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. The thing is that physics has to marry spirituality, and spirituality has to marry physics. If you don't have that connection between the two, we don't got the whole picture.
Spirituality is a weird word. What does that mean?
It's a very taboo word. It's a very abused word.
It's abused, for sure. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Like that kind of shit. Yeah. That's where it gets weird.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. When I speak about spirituality, I'm speaking about something that really can't be put into words. It's unfathomable. Our language isn't designed to talk about this stuff. When we look at Orwell and Newspeak, there's certain words that don't exist for this stuff. You'd have to use a ancient language, and even ancient language you try to translate to English, it's like we don't have a word for this. You ever had to? Yeah. You've seen that
like
before,
ancient
language.
Hebrew when they try to translate things.
Right.
Ancient Hebrew, all the numbers were actually, all the letters rather were actually numbers as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you know when you talk about halos that the original halo was a mushroom cap?
What?
Yeah.
A mushroom cap.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about? Okay, I got you.
The original halo was, well, there's a book called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. It's by John Marco Allegro, and he was a biblical scholar that was one of the guys that was assigned to decipher the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is the oldest version of the Bible.
Yes.
It's the only one I think that they've ever found. It's written in Aramaic, and it was found in Qumran and these clay jars, and it's all written on animal skins to decipher it. They actually had to run DNA tests on the animal skins to figure out which skins belonged to which animal, so they could put all the stuff together to figure out like all these pieces were a part of this one scroll.
Yeah.
Well, this guy John Marco Allegro studied it for 14 years, and it was his conclusion after he was done that the entire Christian religion was a giant misunderstanding. And what it was originally about was the consumption of psychedelic mushrooms and fertility rituals. And they started doing all of these different scholars who studied ancient art and ancient religious art. They started finding this mushroom iconography and all this ancient artwork. And one of the things they noticed is that the bottom of a mushroom, if you take like particularly the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is the one that they connect to the Christian religion, look at the bottom of it, see what it looks like with all those lines.
Yeah.
Now look at that. That was the original halo.
Okay.
And if you see that picture with Jesus with the halo around his head, the halo was essentially the bottom of a mushroom cap. And the idea, they believe, was that these people were the ones that were consuming the psychedelic mushrooms, so they had this great wisdom and this connection to God. That's what they thought mana was. That's what they thought these psychedelic mushrooms were, the flesh of God.
I like that.
Yeah, and so that when you have these ancient religions that were possibly based on the consumptions of these psychedelic mushrooms, all that stuff has kind of been lost in the translation over years and years and years, and then even the visualization of the halos changed.
Yeah.
And there's also some really crazy ones of naked people dancing in ecstasy surrounded by this translucent mushroom image. So the idea that they were in these mushroom-induced euphoric states and that they were dancing around, all these religious depictions.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Because if you think about ancient religions, right? No science. They had no idea what shape the world was. They didn't know anything. But they did know if you found these mushrooms and you took them, you'd trip your fucking balls off.
Right.
And you would have this incredible experience. And they thought that was God. You know, that was their connection to God. You know, so
That's interesting.
yeah, it's a great book, and the Catholic Church actually bought it out, and they got rid of it, and then you could only buy used copies of it. But then it was republished recently over the last few years. Someone got the rights to it. Yeah,
That's interesting.
it's intense stuff.
Yeah, I like that conversation.
Yeah,
That's sexy. You know, anything that goes away from the norm, I think is real sexy. It needs to be talked about. You know, I think.
Speaking of sexy, you see that woman that accused Trump of rape? She said she was talking about rape being sexy.
Yeah,
and Anderson Cooper's like, "We'll be right back." Cut to commercial. What?
Yeah, she's a loony bin.
Well, she seems like she might be medicated.
Yeah, you can definitely tell there's something off there.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe she's super nervous being on television too. That's also.
I don't know.
It's hard to figure out how people are when you see them on television because.
I like to consider myself a good judge of character. She's off her rocker.
She seems off her rocker. I don't know her in person though. I mean, some people really do have panic attacks when that camera's on, that white light, and they're in the CNN studios, and then it just comes out weird. And then they're like, "What the fuck was wrong with me?"
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I could see that. I don't think in her case. I think she's just really like.
Do you think she's trying to sell a book?
She's trying to sell something.
Yeah.
She definitely wants some attention. You know, but Teflon Don, she can't do nothing. Teflon Don.
It is crazy how he's been able to shake everything off, everything.
If you stand 10 toes down, he can't nobody do nothing to you. That's why I keep saying, like, don't worry about these tech companies. Stand 10 toes down.
Stand 10 toes down?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Stand on your foot, man.
Oh.
It's like, stand your ground. You know, it don't waver just because somebody says something. You know, I get criticized a lot online, and my response is, I said what I said. I'll infuriate the left and I'll infuriate the right. And the right will feel like, well, last week you were pro-Trump and now you're saying something that's different. It's like, and?
Well, you got the most shit, I think, for that Starbucks video. The Starbucks video was hilarious.
Thank you.
When you walked into Starbucks and you said, here you all, you guys are racist. I'm here to get my free Starbucks.
Yeah.
And that lady was like, okay.
Amanda. Shout out to Amanda.
Shout out to Amanda. She's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I heard that. Hold on, I'll get you a coffee. It's like, I didn't know you could just give away coffee if you work at Starbucks, but I guess she just did.
I manifested that.
Where was that?
That was New Jersey, Woodbury Commons Mall, I think.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But, like, I manifested that, and you can go look at that. The tweet 2 weeks before said, if you want to be on mainstream media, pretend to be a liberal. Then I also said, I said to my followers, I said, can y'all get me on Fox News? The next week, I pulled this stunt and then got on Fox News.
Now, when they had you on Fox News, what was the premise? What were they going to talk? What did they say?
They just wanted a story. They just wanted,
right. They just wanted some.
They just wanted some shit for people.
And they also probably wanted a little bit of potential outrage. Like, look at this guy asking for coffee reparations.
Yeah, you got a black guy who's asking for reparations. They kind of like that, especially when it's spoofing the left. So they kind of wanted to weaponize me.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of that.
I thought it was funny.
I thought it was hilarious.
It was funny because you were very friendly about it. It wasn't like you were being angry or anything. Did you have your son with you or someone too?
Yeah, my boys, the whole family was with me.
That's funny, man.
Yeah. My son didn't. He was like, I told him, somebody go here and get a free coffee. He's like, yeah, right. It's like, your dad's really about to pull this off, bro.
You had a debate recently about reparations with
CJ Pearson?
Yes, that young guy who's he's an interesting guy, very, very intelligent and articulate fellow. Isn't he like 19 years old or something
16.
like that? 16?
Yeah.
Is he really only 16?
16, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they say at least.
I thought he was older than that. He writes for Quillette, and is he really only 16?
Yeah.
CJ Pearson, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Find out how old he is. That seems crazy.
He's got great.
Does it say he's 16? Wow. He's fucking smart as shit.
No, he's not.
What?
No, he's not.
Why do you think he's not smart?
He's not smart. Smart people create things. Stupid people.
Oh, he's fucking 16. You don't think he's got an exceptional vocabulary and ability to express himself at 16?
What does that mean?
Well, it means you got something going on.
I don't mean shit.
It doesn't mean shit. An exceptional you speak
What
in
is-
absolutes sometimes.
What
that?
does vocabulary mean? You memorize some words?
Well, you have use of them at access,
Right.
instantaneous access. That means they're in your mind all the time, which
Yeah.
means you've done a lot of reading, which means you've done a lot of studying, which means you have a command of the English language, which was the only thing that we have if you speak English that you can use to express your intent.
Right. And Orwell talks about these political types who sound very educated. He says it. They sound very educated on the matter.
Right.
And then when you break down what they actually said, it's so very vague. It's so very non-specific. There's actually no solutions. All they do is talk about problems. What is your platform, CJ Pearson? Candace Owens, what is your platform? Is your platform, I hate Democrats, or is your platform, I want something for the people? Because it seems like when you watch these people, they're all saying the same thing for clicks. Like I told you, my homeboy who makes all that money on Facebook, he's doing the Candace Owens and CJ Pearson thing for money.
But are they the same? They're not. They don't have the same ideology, C.J. Pearson's and Candace Owens.
They're cut from the same cloth.
You think so?
They're the same person. He's just a younger version.
I heard him speak on the Sam Harris show. I believe it was him, right? Was it him? CJ, see if Google that. CJ Pearson on Sam. I'm pretty sure it's the same cat. And I was very impressed, especially with someone his age.
Yeah, I mean, he talks very well. And
That's
he says,
hard to do.
Here in the
No, it's not
United
him?
States of America.
Oh, it's not him.
I mean, I typed out both their names and nothing.
Okay,
pops up, so.
maybe it's a different dude.
They have pre-planned
That's why I thought he was older.
catchphrases. Pre-planned catchphrases. You're learning. You're just learning another language, and that's what he's speaking that language. There's no dig
Okay.
on him. That's little bro. There's no dig on him.
I see what you're saying.
But-
So you're saying that they have this sort of ideology that they're subscribing to, this predetermined pattern of behavior. They know what works, and then they just follow it.
Yeah.
Sort of like top 40 DJ talks.
There you go.
Right.
Right. Like what new thought has he created?
I don't know.
He hasn't.
I just listened to that debate, and it's a conversation that I think is a fascinating one, the conversation of reparations, because there can be no doubt that something horrible happened to the black community and they're still suffering from it, especially in the Deep South when you look at these places where the people who lived are the direct descendants of slaves.
Yeah.
And then these are the same impoverished neighborhoods that no one's ever done anything to try to fix.
Right.
So how do you fix it?
You first have to start with the subconscious mind of the black mind. And the problem with the black mind is the fact that the black mind starts off with a defeatist mentality. From the day you're born, you're taught the white man's out to get you. So you start off with a boogeyman, and then you're taught that you're a slave, right? So when your subconscious mind believes that the beginnings of your race is a slave, how do you aspire to be more than that? So in order to correct the black community, you have to teach black history, or so-called black history, or what I would say African history, in chronological order. Before we were slaves, we were kings. So how do you have a whole entire nation of 40 some odd million black people, and majority of them never heard of Queen Angola, who never heard of the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, none of this stuff, right? King Mansa Musa. How do you raise a people's level of awareness about this stuff? And how do you elevate them to want to do things in life when they think they are a slave? That's the first thing that you have to do to help black people. You have to teach them who they are.
That expression, before they were slaves, they were kings. The problem with that is a king is a monarch, and a monarch is one person who controls giant groups of people. You can't have a bunch of kings. There's not a lot of kings. You can't have a nation of kings.
Correct. But that's very different from saying, that we had 4 kings, right? Let's say there were just 4, right? Mm-hmm. That's better than saying Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and these free slaves, right? You actually have to see at least one king.
I see what you're saying.
At least say.
So see one advanced human being that also looks like you, that came from the same part of the world where your ancestors came from. So recognize that the trajectory that you and your family are on is a direct result of being enslaved. That someone was enslaved in the past and brought over here against their will. Mm-hmm. That's why there's the negative mindset. That's why there's a negative self-image, is because there's this great history of oppression. Yeah.
When you think you're a slave, you can't operate outside of that.
And even if you don't think you're a slave, you think you're inferior. I had, do you know who Miss Pat is?
No.
Hilarious comedian, one of the funniest human beings alive. And she was here, and one of the things she was talking about was when she was younger, that when she would see white people, she wouldn't look them in the eye. She would get nervous. She felt inferior being around them. Mm-hmm. She just wanted to get away. She didn't feel like she belonged.
Right. And that's a product of not knowing who you are, not knowing your own personal power. When you look at the Second Punic Wars of Carthage, you had Hannibal went through the Alps, which is Mission Impossible, and he went all the way to the doors of Rome. And Rome said, "Yo, we ain't coming outside to fight you, bro. We ain't coming." That's how strong the power for the army was. They said, "We don't want to fight." They knew if they came outside those gates, they would get their ass whooped. So how do you have a people that walk around not knowing that Hannibal Barca is a well-studied war general? Today, the Pentagon still studies him, right? So how are you operating in America as a black person and not know who Hannibal Barca is?
Well, it's difficult, I think, for people that were born in America and all their known ancestors are from America to even relate. Like my family is mostly from Italy and Sicily, and some of them from Ireland. Mm-hmm. I don't relate at all. I visit Italy in the summer times. I don't relate at all.
Right. So then the other psyop is the fact that we were the natives. We were not brought here on slave ships. That's not economically sound. This
what do you mean?
Make sense. So when Christopher Columbus got here, Christopher Columbus got to the Caribbean, according to a primary source.
Right.
They basically said the first thing he did was take slaves. He didn't bring slaves. He took slaves from the island. He captured people. So when you have colonization, you got to remember, the United States was only built 13 colonies at first, right? You think this whole land was empty? No, there were natives here.
Right.
But today we're taught that natives is some other people. No, natives are the melanated African being that has come here since the beginning of the Mali Empire. We're talking about 14th, 13th century. We had already come here from Africa.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. We had already come here.
To the United States or to
This landmass we call the United States. So the way the ocean current works is it works from Africa, leaves out of West Africa, comes to South America and the Caribbean. That's just how the currents go. You don't need no paddle boat or nothing. It'll just, the currents will just take you there, and then you travel up. But we had already been here. All you got to do is look up the story of Sarah Rector. Sarah Rector is a wealthy so-called Native American. I think she was a Choctaw tribe or one of these tribes, but she was wealthy, and she wanted a VI pass to go somewhere, and they had her classified as a free person. Why don't we know about the wealthy so-called black people in America? Why don't we know that there were black slave owners in America? Why is that not taught? Why is it not taught?
How many black slave owners were there?
Man, the natives here had slaves. They were trading slaves with the so-called white man.
Well, they definitely did that. Natives enslaved people of other tribes.
Right. So if those people are us, the so-called black man, if those natives were us, then we have to tell that history and say how we did have territories and we did, carry out commerce, and we weren't slaves. We were slave owners.
Right, but the majority of African Americans that lived here were brought over here.
No,
that's
not economically sound.
What do you mean by it's not economically sound? Like there were slave ships, right?
All right, let's say you wanted to have you wanted to sell marijuana, right?
Right.
Would you import marijuana or would you grow it here if it's already here?
Well, it depends on whether or not marijuana grew here.
Well, can you grow marijuana here?
You can, but
Okay.
we're just talking about marijuana. Like, what if we're talking about something that you can't grow here?
So what I'm saying is, people were already here. Does it make sense to go all the way to this other continent to bring people on a boat when we know that half of your stock is going to die? You wouldn't do that.
So how many people do you think were brought over from Africa on slave ships? Because that definitely happened.
I don't believe it.
What do you mean you don't believe it?
I don't believe that story.
You don't believe that Africans were brought over on slave ships?
Correct. I believe it may have happened, maybe people were brought over as slaves, but I don't think that the black people in America came from Africa on slave ships. I believe the people that were here were slowly conquered. First, they got the East Coast, and then they started spreading out west little by little, conquering. And when you conquer a tribe, what do? You enslave them. They're POWs, right?
Okay.
That's what you do. So after you conquer this tribe, you make them slaves. Now, how do you conquer the natives here? So let's say you got this tribe is warring against this tribe. Well, this tribe goes talk to the white man. White man says, yo, if you help me wipe out these people, then boom, I'll help you with whatever. So they get together and they wipe out this other tribe. Now, guess what? The white man now outnumbers this tribe. So he wipes them out. You just kill two birds with one stone. You just keep moving like that.
But I'm still confused. There's a great history of slave ships being brought over from Africa with Africans that became slaves and worked in the South. Do you think that's lies?
History is his story.
Right.
What about my story? Is my story not valid?
But if you do 23andMe on someone who is from these parts of the country, you'll find out that
23andMe.
Well, that's real. So what is 23andMe?
When I take a 23andMe test, right?
Yes.
What's it going to tell me about Africa?
That's a good question. We should find out.
It's probably going to say, "Oh, you're from Kenya, or you're from Angola, you're from this, right?"
Right.
These things, these borders, were created by Europe.
In terms, yes,
right.
In terms of like what parts of Africa and how it's distributed and what's a country and what's not a country.
Yeah,
right.
These
by
names,
the Afrikaners and Dutch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't classify me based upon a European name.
I understand that, but they're saying geographically, geographic location, you can call it whatever name you want.
Right.
They can tell you where your genetics originated. Like,
right.
I've got some weird shit in me. I got like 1% Asian. I don't know why it's there. 1.6% African.
Okay.
There's also weird stuff that you find in your DNA that like your ancestors and ancestors' ancestors.
Right.
Someone
so
was somewhere.
Let's walk down that path, right? So either way, if you take black people here in America and you do their DNA sample and it point back to Africa, what does that say? It says black people in America are Africans. Now, the argument is, were we brought here or were we already here? Did we bring ourselves here, or did the white man bring us here? You see, when you say the white man brought us here, what you're doing is you're removing our ability to transport ourselves. You're saying, oh, we didn't know anything about boats. That's what you're trying to tell me. You're trying to tell me that we didn't know that there was a landmass here. Only the holy white man knew there was land to the west. But when you look at the holy white man, he said, when we got here, we met black people. Go look at the primary source. We got here, we met black people. When we got to the Caribbean, we met black people. You think the Caribbean is right next to America and they weren't in America?
That's interesting.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
when you go to South
makes sense that you do have people that have traveled, whether it's Polynesians that traveled to Hawaii or people. I mean, there's the Olmecs who were thousands and thousands of years ago in South America. They have clearly African faces.
Yes.
On this, I mean, really, the noses, the lips. I mean, they look African.
Right.
And that was a South American culture that existed, and we don't know anything about them other than the fact that they have these gigantic stone sculptures that have African faces.
Well, like again, just go to, if you can pull up the ocean currents. If you pull up,
I've seen that.
You've seen that, man.
Well, do you know who Graham Hancock is?
I've heard about him. Yeah,
you read his stuff. It's really fascinating because he's all about that. He's all about the fact that the idea that human beings were probably living in advanced civilizations far longer than 14,000 years ago, and they did travel all over the world, and that you do find the remnants of these ancient cultures that we have no explanation for throughout the Amazon, and throughout different parts of South America and Central America.
I mean, when you go and you look at real European history, right? You had the Magyars would believe that if they took a bath, it was bad.
Right.
They didn't even want to change their clothes. They thought that dirty was purity. When we talk about the Moors going into Spain and into Europe, the stories in the history, our history, says that when we met the so-called Caucasian, he was sleeping in the barn with the animals, and we told him, no, you can't sleep in the barn with animals. We taught them etiquette. We taught them running water. We brought that technology to Europe. Now, if we brought the technology to Europe that saved Europe from the Black Plague, you mean to tell me that if we saved the white race, that we weren't already in America already? When we brought the technology, when Rome was dependent on Africa for food, remember when the Black Plague hit Rome, the cause was one of the officials was stealing the grain that was coming from Africa. So there was famine, hit Rome. If your source of sustenance is from Africa, how are you superior? You're not. You get your food from me. So if you get your food from me, who's more likely to travel this globe? Me, I'm the source of food. And that's the first thing you need to survive on this planet. So if your whole civilization is dependent on me to supply food, I made it to America first. It's just that you won the war. You got to tell the story.
Is that their only source of food? I mean, it's a source of food that Rome had, right? But Rome is also very close to Africa.
Well, let's talk about that. What kinds of food did they have?
Well, I don't know.
It's very rudimentary. It was a very rudimentary civilization. It wasn't all what is cracked up to be. When you go look at what the Greeks said about Egypt when they go into Egypt, it's like, it's like the New York City of that time.
The ultimate. If you really want to talk about African civilization being advanced, Egypt is the ultimate, because Egypt to this day is still unexplained. No one really understands how they built those things. No one understands how old the culture is. That's another thing that Graham Hancock and Dr. Robert Schoch from Boston University, who's a geologist, he's pointing to water erosion and the Temple of the Sphinx that leads you to believe that that place might have been as old as 9,000 plus BC. So,
it absolutely is. Yeah, well, if not older, going back to Pharaoh Ramses.
There's also different styles of architecture, right? There's older styles of architecture they find deeper in the sand. They think it might have been indicative of an earlier kingdom. And then there's also the Nubian structures of some of the faces, particularly the Sphinx.
Yeah.
The Sphinx, they believe, had a lion's face, and then when they were conquered by the Nubians, they changed the actual structure of the face of the Sphinx and turned it into a king's face.
Well, the way it was taught to me was that there's Upper and Lower Egypt. So Upper Egypt is actually our New South, right? That's our South. And what the way it was taught to me was that was the mind of Egypt. And the economic section of Egypt was what we see Giza pyramids. And it's economic because if you look at it, it sits between 3 continents on the Mediterranean Sea. So it's a perfect place to carry out commerce. It's the perfect place. That's why everybody wants to be there. That's why there's a war in the Middle East, because it's a perfect place to be. You know what I mean?
So do you believe that some Africans came over here in slave ships or none?
Very minimal.
Very minimal, really?
Very minimal.
So you think it's a myth?
Almost.
Now, does there any scholars that support these opinions? Are these your opinions? Or where are you getting this from?
So here's the thing. This is stuff I've studied probably close to 15 years ago. So I don't remember a lot of my sources or who I learned it from, but I can give you a couple of names. What you got to do is you got to look up Shaka Akmos. You got to look up Dr. Kaba Kameen, Dr. Phil Valentine, Bobby Hemmett. Who else is a good Egyptologist? Shaka Akmos is a real good Egyptologist. I think you should start there with Shaka Akmos. But these are videos I used to watch and lectures I used to watch back in the day. Now I focus on like startups, and that's where my brain is. That's where my knowledge is focused on.
Right.
But a lot of this stuff comes from my own common sense. It just does not make sense logistically to take people from all the way from over there to bring them here, especially when half your stock is going to die when you got people right here. You have human resources right here. All I got to do is pop them, shoot a couple of them. The rest of them are like, all right, fine. And you enslave them. And none of them die except for the ones I actually killed, right? I got a whole millions of people right here. Like, why would I go all the way across the ocean to bring people back across the ocean? It just doesn't make sense. It's just stupid. Nobody run a business like that.
What's up, Jamie?
PBS, the title was How Many Slaves Landed in the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
Well, scroll that up. Scroll that up so I can read that whole thing.
Okay.
Right to there. Perhaps you, like me, were raised essentially to think of the slave experience primarily in terms of our black ancestors here in the United States. In other words, slavery is primarily about us, right from the Crispus attacks and Philip Wheatley, Benjamin Banneker, and Richard Allen, all the way to Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and Frederick Douglass. Think of it as an instance we might think of as African-American exceptionalism. In other words, it is the black experience. It's got to be about black Americans. Well, think again. The most comprehensive analysis of shipping records over the course of slave trade is the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, edited by Professors David Eltis and David Richardson. While the editors are careful to say that all the figures are estimates, they believe that the best estimates that we have, the proverbial gold standard in the field, the study of the slave trade between 1525 and 1866, in the entire history of the slave trade to the New World, according to the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, 12.5 million Africans were shipped to the New World. 10.7 million survived the dreaded Middle Passage, disembarking in North America, the Caribbean, and South America. How many of those 10.7 million Africans were shipped directly to North America? Only about 388,000. That's right, a tiny percentage. So a small percentage of all the Africans that were enslaved were actually shipped to North America.
That's probably closer to the truth. They ain't come from Africa, bro. That don't make no sense. Nobody would run a business like that.
Well, they're saying that a lot of people did, though. That's 10.7 million people.
Came on boats?
That's what they're saying. That's
They
the
were in the
transatlantic
slave trade. I don't know if that means that they necessarily came here. They could have been going to Europe. They
Well,
could have
no,
been
they
going
were
to the
saying that.
Caribbean.
They were saying that it was in
The
Caribbean.
slave trade does not have to come from Africa. I can trade with you right here in America.
But was it
It said directly to North America is only under 400,000.
Right.
Right.
Involved in the shipping and going all over the world. It could be going anywhere.
But
Right.
from Africa,
That's
correct?
less than 10%.
Africans shipped, yes.
Right. That's
Yeah.
less than 10%.
Less than 10% in North America, but 10.7 million Africans enslaved
12.
and moved. Yeah, 10.7 survived, right?
Were shipped, but it didn't say where they were shipped to. It's just
Right.
to the New World. The New World is very
Vague.
arbitrary.
And
Yeah, it could be
only
anything.
388,000 actually made
Came
it
to
North America.
Yeah, this land.
I could trade
So-
from Haiti or Jamaica or South
Right.
America.
So you think So you think that there was probably already a significant population of Africans that were seafaring that made it all the way over here.
Yes.
Well, if you listen to the words of Hancock and the discussion of prehistoric, what we would consider prehistoric use of boats and ships, it's probably likely.
Like, look at ancient Egypt. Don't you see pictures of boats? up
Oh,
there?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So-
Well, they would bury them. I mean, if you could, there was the, what is the big science museum in L.A. that had the Egypt exhibit really recently. It's fucking incredible. But they had a depiction of the boats that they used.
Yeah.
I mean, they had boats for sure.
They had boats.
Definitely traveled.
So how can you tell me that a civilization had boats before Europe was literate, didn't come to America, didn't set up shop? It's just not common. I mean, I don't need to read a book to understand that.
But definitely makes sense if they made it to South America. I mean, if the Olmecs were, I mean, if you pull up an image of the Olmec heads, this is heavily disputed.
John Henrik Clarke is an author you should study. John Henrik Clarke has a book, They Come Before Columbus.
I mean, look at that. Look at these Olmec heads.
Yeah.
They all looked like that.
Yeah, that's South America.
Yeah.
So
it's
if you have
amazing.
There has to be a large population of people in order to create these things, right?
Yeah.
It has to be, they have to be advanced. So if they're here already in South America, why you gonna go across the sea when you got people right here you could just enslave? South America is connected to America. You think we didn't come up north? You think we didn't take that walk?
Right.
That's just common sense.
Well, particularly when they're finding all this evidence of people that were here thousands and thousands of years before they ever thought people were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the evidence in the Grand Canyon from Egypt.
What? I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
What's that?
You heard about that?
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
What is there might be some gold down there.
Ooh.
Is this
Egyptian gold in the Grand Canyon?
Hey.
Imagine if they found a fucking Egyptian tomb in the Grand Canyon.
There's Egyptian stuff that's been found in Ohio.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
All over.
Well, I was looking some stuff up. But Graham was telling me, I went home and looked up the Serpent Mound stuff, and like right up the road from where the Serpent Mound is, there's been a couple artifacts found there, like 100 years
Egyptian
ago.
artifacts.
Yeah.
They call mounds.
Pull that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's mounds in America, which supposed to be like pyramids or whatever. So
There's even an Egypt, Ohio. I don't think it's named after that, but it's literally like in the same spot.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
there's this
The history of human travel is fucking fascinating.
We've
Man.
circumnavigated this globe before, man. This isn't new stuff. It's new to Europe. It wasn't new to the African race, man. We've been here. They got the mounds, the archaeological evidence from Egypt and the Grand Canyon. It's right there.
See, I've never heard that before. That is interesting. The archaeological evidence in the Grand Canyon.
Because it's not part of his story. He's got to keep you thinking. He's got to keep the black people thinking you were slaves and you came from Africa on boats. That's what they got to keep you thinking.
But you really think that there's some sort of a grand conspiracy to withhold information?
Yeah.
The universities, scholars, all these people that are talking about the history of the world.
Universities are indoctrination centers.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do is send a child to college unless they're going to learn a hard science. You know, when you go to college.
Wait a minute. You think gender studies is bullshit?
Of course it's bullshit.
Wait a minute. What are you saying?
These make-believe degrees.
Gender studies, bro. Serious stuff.
Yeah, gender study, you know.
It's a social construct.
I study gender in the bedroom with my girl.
Boom, 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 boom.
That's why I study gender, okay? Ain't no such thing as no gender studies in school.
Tell me, but there is. You can pay for it, and you'd be in debt for studying gender studies. You can get a fat degree.
Yeah.
Do you find anything about Egyptian?
When I found it, I was down a deep hole, so like I can't just find it that way. I'm trying to. I
they
sent it
buried
to
it.
somebody, so I'll find it in a second.
They
Just one second.
bury it.
Yeah,
Google
actually,
it.
here, I just found the picture
Okay,
I found.
here we go. Pull it up. Let me see some shit.
This is the
Hotep's got to get his glasses on. We're getting serious.
this is the good stuff, man. That we look at his head. You see his head right there?
Yes.
That's not nappy hair.
Well, that's a Thai Buddha.
So
That's not his hair.
Well, I think those are braids.
this was like an ornament.
Who
they're
wears
calling it.
braids?
A lot of people, including the Romans.
Oh, like Rachel Dolezal?
What is this?
This
Jen?
is a draw. This is from an old book. That's what I was telling you. It's really old. So this is a drawing of all the inscriptions that were found on this piece of stone, and a lot of these are they're like hieroglyphs and whatnot.
See,
And
Ten
there's a couple.
Commandments?
There's like a somewhere on here is the thing that looks just like that serpent from the mound that's in Ohio.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I forget
Well,
what
I
it's
don't know if
actually
that's
called.
necessarily Egyptian, but it's certainly fascinating.
It might not be Egyptian necessarily, but when I found it, that's what it was tagged as. It could be
okay.
just from that time period or very similar, but
That's
again,
the Pennsylvania archaeology.
this is what the book is found from.
Oh, okay.
That's just how I got to it.
Yeah, I'd never seen this before, but there's some archaeological evidence on the walls, like you said.
A lot of people don't even know that Egypt's in Africa. That's hilarious. When you start talking to people about
Think about that.
African culture,
Why don't
Egypt
they-
is Africa.
Why don't they want the 7 wonders of the world to be associated with Africa?
Well, because Africa's a continent, I guess. They think of it in terms of because Egypt is so unbelievably unique globally.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like it in the world.
We know Stonehenge is in Europe.
Yeah, but Stonehenge is clunky in comparison to the shit that you find in Egypt.
Oh yeah, it is. But
Yeah.
they still prop up Stonehenge like it's some great thing, and you know it's in Europe.
Yeah, Stonehenge is fascinating.
Right.
It's fascinating. Like, why'd they do this? There's a lot of shit in Europe too. They're finding now with LiDAR, where they're using this. They can map into the ground and find these structures and roads and pathways that existed, and it's long since been reclaimed by nature. They're finding that. Like this was one of the Graham Hancock things that he was talking about. How you look at South America when they're going through the Amazon, you're finding these incredible structures and incredible roadways and irrigations, and that they believe that at one point in time there was a civilization of 20 million people living in the Amazon, and that when the European settlers came over, they brought smallpox and wiped everybody out.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Just like they did with the Native Americans. That's another
Exactly.
thing that people don't know. When they talk about Native American genocide, the vast majority is disease.
It's disease, yeah. So when people say, oh, you know, the white man came over here with violence, I'm like, nah, I don't know if he was that violent. I don't think he had enough bullets to kill that many people.
They killed 90% with disease.
With straight disease, man.
Which is fucking crazy.
So where did disease come from?
Europe. Dirty people.
So
Shit
how can
in the
you,
streets.
So how can you
Rats.
tell me that, you know, I'm just a slave, right? When the filth, the degeneration of Europe is what came to America. Greatness didn't come to America. Degeneration came to America.
Well, some greatness did too. I mean,
I'm talking about when we talk about
right?
the people that came here, they were escaping the oppression of.
Yes, Europe.
They were the undesirables in Europe, right?
Or the people try to get away from religious persecution.
Right. Things like that, yeah. But these were the dregs of the society, right?
In many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you come here and you're dirty and you infect the people and maybe now that's why you got to go to Africa get slaves because you killed everybody over here.
Because everybody's dead. What if you had to, like, if you were speaking in front of Congress and you were talking about reparations, what would you have to say?
Keep the conversation going. Open up the conversation. Let's get more minds involved. Don't shoot it down. And Dems must pay. You know, I got the hashtag going. Dems must pay.
Why Dems?
Because it's a great start, number one. So, you know, when we had the debate with C.J. Pearson, he said, you know, in his rant, you know, he went off about da-da-da-da, and he said, if anything, the Dems should pay. It's the liberals because they had the KKK, they owned slavery, they ran the slave trade, da-da-da-da-da. So it's like, well, if that's the case, then why don't we make them pay? The other thing is, you know, if you're conservative and you know, you're having this election race or whatever, why don't you just take the wild card away from them, you know, from the left and say, well, yeah, you know, if there is a reparations conversation, you know, that was the Democrats, that was the Dixiecrats that installed black codes in South Carolina. They're the ones that...
That's an interesting conversation, right? When you say that.
Yeah.
And like, wait, what? It's actually the Democrats are responsible.
Yeah, you had the thing called black codes. And if you were considered black, then you didn't have rights. The funny thing is you could be technically African and be white. White isn't a color, it's a status.
Elon Musk.
What do you mean?
He's from Africa.
Is he?
Yep.
Well, I knew that.
Yeah.
But he's not an African.
Well, he was born in Africa.
But he's not an African, is
South
he?
African.
But so when we do his 23andMe, what is this gonna
Probably
say?
Dutch or something.
Oh,
like
there you
that,
go.
right?
So he's
something
right.
from Europe.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, see what I'm saying?
But there's white people that their lineage from historically is from Africa.
I'm sure.
Well, I mean, the Sephardic people that lived in northern Africa, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where it's considered more Middle East.
Right. You can see some of that, absolutely. But these people aren't the African.
Right.
These people come from Turkey.
Right.
They come from Kiev, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's where they come from. They migrated into Africa. That's not where they're from.
Right.
Their bodies aren't even biologically conducive to that environment. You know, I'm not conducive to the New York environment. White folks
Who is?
Exactly. But white folks is running down the street with shorts, and I'm just like, yo, I need a jacket. You know? But there's definitely a biological difference there that we got to recognize to let
Sure.
us know where we came from.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I don't know. It's a lot to this conversation.
There's a lot to this conversation, but it's so heavily weighted. People don't want to be objective about it.
Right.
What's up?
The thing I found about the Egyptians in Ohio was actually from a paper that was written. It's postulating it. I guess they took a lot of the evidence that they had been finding and saying this shows that there might have actually been Egyptians there.
That's from 1937?
That's when the guy was, I think, born. This is 40 years ago.
Oh,
so
wow.
That amulet was brass, apparently, and it was found near Cincinnati. And where I actually think that it might have been trade routes, because there was some like stones that have been found in various parts of the world that are from specifically Ohio, because it's like a rainbow shale that was used in like arrowheads and stuff a long, long time ago. Like that area was used to make weapons, like the first, like 12,000 years ago when the first people were kind of in North America. But that area in Ohio also is known as the sandstone capital of the world. And I don't know if that's related to the Egyptians, because that's what the pyramids are made out of, you know. There's tons of sandstone that is very specific to that region.
Yeah.
So
Pyramids made out of sandstone?
I thought so. Yeah,
I've heard this,
There's
yeah.
21, from 1800 to 1980, 21 times the amount of sandstone that made the Great Pyramid was shipped out of Ohio to make various buildings all over the world.
Really?
Most of them in the United States, obviously, but all over the place.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, just weird
This
facts I found after Graham
history
came through.
of the humans.
We don't know history.
We know some. All
The
right?
only history that we know is the one we go discover on our own time. The one that's presented to us is not history. It's all lies.
Well, it's not all lies.
All of it.
There's some lies.
I found that too. I didn't
Lost
follow that.
civilization in Grand Canyon was, Egyptian?
Yeah, the Smithsonian published some stuff in 1909,
Oh, wow.
I guess, that where all this came from. There was an article that got written, and I don't know how much of it they proved or was proven, or it was just newspaper. It's
Whoa.
like bait back in the day.
Look at this.
kind of,
Even
but-
more amazing, the artifacts didn't match up to anything on the known record. Rather than appearing to be of Native American origin, as one might expect, the object had distinct Egyptian or Tibetan designs. Could there have been an entire civilization of Egyptians living here? If so, how did they get here? Dun, dun, dun.
It's not that hard. Hop in the boat, man. You got cats that leave Africa and try to come to Spain on these places on a chicken wing.
Yeah.
You know?
It is interesting, right? Like the population of Cuba. Cuba's so insanely diverse, and it's right there. Like, what is the history of that other than the slave routes? Like, what is the history of Cuba? Because Cuba has very distinct African people living there.
The whole Caribbean, all that whole area is has a lot of African roots to it. But it's just a place that was conquered by the Spain, you know, by the Cortezes, you know, those type of people.
What really disturbs me is there's no way to know exactly what happened. It's like you're piecing things together based on artifacts and historical record, things that people wrote down, and journals and logs. And it's,
There's people that have traveled. So, again, I've studied this so long ago, but I remember reading primary source from somebody that traveled with Cristobal Colon, a.k.a. Christopher Columbus. And he was saying very specific things about his accounts when he reached these different places. You know, and he was saying things like, we got to the land and we found Africans. And I remember him specifically saying, so no matter where we go, we find Africans. And he said it as if he was disappointed. And then they started talking about, like, you know, they started talking about their culture and describing their culture. You just got to go look at the people that travel with Cristobal Colon, and there's some firsthand accounts there, and they're very honest about it, you know.
dude, I'm going to look into that now. That's very interesting. I'm going to ask Graham about that too, what he knows about it. 'Cause he's studied, especially on his latest book, he studied a lot about the various cultures that made it to North America and South America.
Okay. Yeah. It's just very rich in history. Very, very rich in history.
I got to wrap this up, but thanks for coming, man. I had a great time talking to you. Tell everybody it's Vibe High on HI on Twitter. No more Instagram.
No Instagram. Don't
Your
follow
show,
Instagram.
your YouTube show.
Hotep's Been Told You every Thursday, 8 p.m.
It's a great
Eastern
name.
Time.
All right.
And my main website is bryansharp.co, BRYNSHARP.co.
That's the real name. But Hotep Jesus that's preferred. That's
Yeah.
preferred. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. That
Thank
was
you,
fun.
man.
Thank you. Hotep Jesus, ladies and gentlemen.